The term old money refers to a type of sophistication, of timelessness, that is associated with families or individuals who have maintained their wealth over several generations. So when you dress old money, typically this means adopting a style that exudes a sense of timeless elegance, sophistication, and wealth. It just makes sense that people would want to give a signal of, hey, I'm timelessly elegant, I'm sophisticated, and who knows, maybe I could be wealthy someday. But seriously, gents, building an old money wardrobe, in my opinion, is smart because you're building a wardrobe that isn't going to go out of style. So rule number one, quality over quantity. The quality of the items that you're going to add to your wardrobe matters. Now, does this mean you've got to be rich, that you have to spend a lot of money on those items? No. You need to be able to spot quality, because then you can spot items that are on sale, items that normally would cost $1,000 on sale for $300, and you know to be able to grab that pair of shoes when you see it and it's a deal. And to be straight up, gents, you don't even have to spend hundreds of dollars. You can go into a thrift store, you can raid your father, your grandfather, your uncle's closet and say, hey, he's not wearing this anymore. This is a classic item and it's still in style because it's timeless. Boom, all of a sudden you're able to add this classic tie, this classic blazer to your wardrobe. And I know so many of you guys are going to be tempted to buy cheap, but don't do it. Instead, stick with the boring classics, because guess what? They're going to be interchangeable. They're going to be versatile. You can work and wear these with other items in your wardrobe. You're going to get more mileage out of them. It's better to have less than to own a bunch of just cheap crap that is never going to look good and definitely won't fit into an old money wardrobe. Rule number two, timeless elegance over trends. I get it, gents. The whimsical winds of fashion draw us in. We see our favorite athlete wearing a particular brand, a particular item, and yes, it's trending. We want to jump on it. We want to look cool. But here's the thing. If you go with what that musician's wearing right now, it's going to be out of style within a few months. Again, gents, we want to go with timeless items that have been around for a decade, have been around for 50 years. Because guess what? If it's been around for 50 years, it's going to be around for another 50. Now, I get it. Some of you guys are saying, well, this is boring. But think about how it's going to affect your wallet, because you go out there and you spend a lot of money on a trendy piece and then it's out of style. You don't want to be wearing it. You only got a handful of wears out of that item versus something that's timeless. You could wear this hundreds of times. You're going to get a lot of mileage out of it. And because you're going to get more mileage out of this particular item, you can justify spending a bit more. Remember, gents, the style theory of value? The value is equal to the number of wears times how it makes you feel divided by the price. Old money rule number three, focus in on fit. Gentlemen, you can spend $1,000 on a suit, but if it doesn't fit you, it's not going to look good. Compare that with a suit you had handed down to you from an uncle. You have it adjusted to fit you. It looks great. In fact, every time you put it on, it feels and makes you look like $1,000,000. Remember, gentlemen, fit is king. Rule number four, stick with a conservative color palette. Seriously, over 90% of an old money wardrobe is going to be in the colors of charcoal, black, navy, gray, white, light blue, and camel. What do all these colors have in common? They're timeless, they're versatile, and they're sophisticated. Next up on our list of old money style rules, you take care of the items in your wardrobe. Shoes in particular. You own a shoe shine box and you condition and shine your shoes after every wear. All right, so maybe you don't have to condition them after every wear, but you're taking care of them. When you get a scuff, when you get a nick, you are making sure to change out the laces after, 100 or 200 wears when they start to fray. The buttons on your shirts, on your jackets, whenever they become loose, you actually have them repaired. Your automatic watch that you've had for over a decade, if it needs to be serviced, you send it in to get taken care of. Now, I know taking care of your clothing seems obvious to most, but many men coming from the world of disposable fashion, of t-shirts and sweatpants, they're used to, something wearing out pretty quickly and just throwing it away. With old money wardrobe, these items can last you decades if you take care of them. And speaking of accessories, let's talk about the next rule, accessorize wisely. So you don't want to bring in a whole bunch of bling. You're not going to bring in something that's trendy, something that's oversized. You want to keep it simple, whether it's going to be your briefcase, whether it's going to be that classic looking backpack. When it comes to your watch, you don't want anything over the top. When it comes to the jewelry you wear on your hands, around your neck, you want to keep this all simple, timeless, and elegant. Now, does this mean you need to be boring? No, you can definitely bring in a signature piece. But what I'm saying here is that old money style is not flashy money style. Remember, gents, it's not about signaling wealth. It's about sending the message that I don't have to signal wealth because I'm self-assured as to who I am. And that takes us to the next rule about confidence. So when it comes to confidence in clothing, that comes from practicing wearing it and knowing when you put this stuff on that it feels good, that it looks good. You've received compliments. You know how to piece items together. In fact, the outfit that you go to, you've actually worn before. You know that it looks good on you. You know there are going to be no issues with anything, having loose threads. This is your go-to. You feel like $1,000,000 outfit. Now, a lot of guys think that somehow wearing a sports jacket, wearing a blazer, wearing nice chinos or something is going to be uncomfortable. Guys, nothing could be further from the truth. Maybe it's unfamiliar because you're not used to wearing it, and that's why you've got to put in the reps. It's like going to the gym. Whenever you first show up at the gym, you don't know what those machines do. You're trying to say, hey, what exercises should I do in what order? By the 50th time you're going to the gym, you actually have a routine down. You know where things are at, and you're really getting into your groove. In fact, if you start to miss going to the gym, all of a sudden you actually feel like you're missing something out of your routine, out of your life. The same thing is true with an old money wardrobe. Whenever you don't dress well and you're around others, you actually start to feel like you're underdressed. You're not representing who you are. I talk about the clothing we wear sends the message to others with you not having to say a word. And that's what old money style for me is all about. You being able to signal, hey, I'm somebody that's trustworthy. I'm somebody that is worth doing business with. I'm somebody that you can invest your time and money into. All right, guys, so now let's get into the particular items that you're going to want to add to your wardrobe. I'm not going to cover everything, but I'm going to start off with, hey, these are the basics that you have to have. First up, the suit, but not just any suit. You don't want to walk into a box store and buy something that is cheap, made from a couple $100. And the issue being is these type of suits, your cheap ones, are going to be glued right here in the chest piece. They're also going to have they're going to have overstructured shoulders. They are just going to look, they just don't look great, especially when you're sitting back, when you're relaxed. And that's why I highly recommend you look at, suits in maybe the $500 plus range. Go to the best menswear store in your area. Go into a store. I've talked about a number of them. Suit Supply is a great option. Mostly the suits I wear. What I like about them is that they've got, a piece right in here. Basically, they're structured with horsehair and it moves with you. And this is key, that they're structured in a way that there's a bit of movement, because you want something when you put it on, it's incredibly comfortable. You don't want anything that is just over the top structured that is going to get in the way and just, a timeless old money type of style is going to be a suit that you can actually wear. You've heard of lounge suits. I'm not going down that range, but I am saying that this is a suit you could actually relax in. You could take a nap in if, you so choose. Point being is you're going to feel comfortable enough in this that you can be relaxed. And that's key to actually getting the right type of suit we're looking for. Now, do you want to go fully unstructured in the shoulders? You don't need to, but I do like it, personally. Again, try on a variety of different styles. Again, go to the best menswear store in your area and feel the jackets, feel the shoulders. A lot of them actually, they overstuff the shoulders and they don't pack the cotton correctly. This one right here, it pretty much doesn't have anything, just a little bit of structure here. And I know that for me is what's a signal of a better quality made suit. When I'm saying suits, I'm talking a jacket and trousers made from the same material. A lot of guys always think suits are something that you wear, when you're going to go into an interview, maybe a formal occasion, but there is such a thing as a suit that you can lounge around in. And you want to become comfortable in the suit. That's the key, is to actually have a few of these that you can start wearing, and you can actually dress them down. You don't always have to wear them with a tie. But another thing with the suits is the color. So in general, charcoal, navy, and medium gray. Those are going to be the first three that you want to start with. But if you've already got those, or hey, Antonio, I feel pretty comfortable, I want to bring in maybe just a little bit of pattern. You can bring in a subtle pattern. I always like herringbone. You can also bring in bird's eye right here. I've got a little bit of a check pattern. You can't even really see it. It looks solid from a distance. And if it looks solid from about 2 to 3 feet out, you're pretty much safe with the pattern. I do think that patterns can add a bit of, they can make it a little bit less versatile, but it's, we're splitting hairs here. Point being is that you find something that is incredibly comfortable for you. That to me is the most important part. And again, you're following the rules that we talked about at the very beginning. You're making sure you get something that fits your body. You want to make sure the suit fits you really well. If you're a little bit heavier set, maybe go with higher waisted trousers and you would be wearing suspenders with this. If you're really trim, or if you've got a bigger built upper body, you're going to want to make sure it fits you right up here. And you may have to get, it adjusted again by the tailor to make sure it contours to the curves of your body. Now, remember, one of the rules we talked about was neutral color palettes. You're going to make sure to stick with that with the suits, because they're going to be one of the more expensive items that you add to your old money wardrobe. But again, if you get the right suit, you go with a classic notch lapel, you've got the shoulders right on this, you're not doing anything crazy on this. Everything here is classic in design. This is a suit that could last you 20 years if you take care of it. And if you're looking at materials, you're wondering, okay, what is this Super 120 versus a 110 versus a 150 versus a 180? Know that pretty much anything over 100 is going to be fine. You'll see some Super 80s out there, maybe in vintage shops, and that may be a little bit too rough. Usually the higher the number, the tighter the weave and the softer the material is going to be, which isn't always a great thing. You don't want something with too much sheen or too much shine to it. A Super 120, a Super 140 in worsted wool, which is basically just a tightly woven wool, is in general what I look for. Now, depending on the number of suits you have, let's say it's 3, you want to have at least 2 to 3 times as many dress shirts. It really depends on how often you're wearing these items, but if it's pretty much every day, let's say you're working a white collar job, or you're just simply, hey, I wear suits quite a bit, I think you should have 3 shirts for every suit. And you want to make sure that these are 3 shirts that work. And the easiest way to do this is to stick with a classic white. It's pretty much going to work with any suit color, even a white suit, which I'm not going to recommend as one of your first 10. But light blue is another great color combination, and you can change up the styles of the collar. You can go, right here I've got a classic button down, which is going to be very casual, and we'll talk about that in a second. You could also bring in stripe patterns on the shirts. I think that a very thin blue stripe on a white background is a very classic look and is a great, actually pretty versatile. You can wear this with a wide variety of different suit combinations. That being said, if you want to bring in other shirt colors, look to pastels. You're going to see pinks, you're going to see lavenders, you're going to see mint greens. I think that these are not as versatile as the aforementioned colors. That being said, I know a lot of guys like it, and if it works with your color tone, let's say you've got really dark skin or really light skin, and again, you hold those colors up to your skin and you really just like the way they work, then go for it. Now, what about dark colored dress shirts? Well, technically they don't exist. It's only going to be in the lighter colors that we see dress shirts, but I know that they do exist, but they are more casual button downs than they are dress shirts. If you really like the combination, you're going for a monochromatic look, that's great. It could be your style, but understand it's not going to be an old money look. Old money, they stick with a lot of these rules that have been around for decades. Does it make sense? Not really, but these rules, and they've been used by class to be able to, kind of identify who understands the rules. One of them is going with a lighter colored shirt with a darker colored jacket. Pretty much the white with a darker color, the light blue with a darker color. This right here just sends the signal that you understand how to pair these two together. Now, I talked about I'm wearing a button-down collar. There's a wide variety of shirt collars out there. The 2 most common are going to be the spread collar, and by far the most common is the point collar. Point collars are actually made to be worn with a necktie. That's when they look most complete. So if you're going to be, not really wearing a necktie, I would recommend going with a spread collar or a button-down collar. Now, the button-down collar, this came out of the polo field. It's been around for over 100 years. The company Brooks Brothers are the ones that made this popular. I think it looks great on a classic Oxford shirt, which is another option. It's technically not a dress shirt, but it looks like a dress shirt, and it's made from an Oxford fabric, which is going to be a looser, heavier weave. It's great for spring, great for the fall. It's a very hard-wearing fabric, and it's classic, and I think it looks good, and yeah, nothing wrong with adding an Oxford shirt to your wardrobe. Now, we talked about suits, but what about the blazer? What about the sports jacket? So both of those, I think, should be in an old money wardrobe, and the question is, are you going to find reasons and times to wear it? I think the answer should be yes. For me, sports jackets are where it's at. Actually, this is part of a suit, but I am wearing it separate, almost like a sports jacket. If you watch any of my videos, the majority of the time I'm wearing sports jackets. Now, why go with the blazer? They've really fallen out of fashion for a lot of people, but they are still in an old money wardrobe because there are so many options, especially when it comes to the materials. So you're going to see serge out there. You're going to see jersey. You're going to see a lot of lightweight materials that are very breathable in these blazers. The majority of them are going to be of a navy color or a dark blue. You're going to occasionally see a regatta blazer out there. That's not part of an old money wardrobe, so skip on that. But what I like about navy, again, this palette right here, and not using just a suit jacket, is that you've got a separate jacket that's made to be worn with a variety of other trousers, other colors right there. The combination with the navy, I think, is a really nice combination. And you can pull off a suit jacket with, odd trousers, but the problem there is when you separate your suit, you risk damaging it or maybe sending it off to cleaners or bleaching it a little bit lighter than your trousers if you wear it enough, and then all of a sudden you're out a suit versus actually just, your blazer is made, I think, and it looks better because of the styles, and you're going to see the buttons also change up on the blazers. Often they have a nautical theme. They're going to be gold, silver. You could even go with a white ivory or a mother of pearl. Now, really quick, gents, if you are a watch lover like me, you like talking about timepieces, you like learning more about watch history, gents, if that's you, you need to join our free community, Watch Lover. This community has over 1,000 members, guys just like you, talking about watches and sharing their knowledge. So if you've got something to teach, or if you just want to go through our free courses, gents, use the link in the description of today's video, go over to school and join our free community today. Next up, let's talk about your shoes. And can you notice what we're doing here? We're putting a full outfit together. So for every suit you have in your wardrobe, I like to think a man should have a pair of shoes for them. Not saying you need to go overboard. I know tons of guys that got 20 suits and they've only got 5 pairs of shoes. So first up, let's talk about Oxfords, in particular Balmoral Oxfords. Some people just call them Balmorals, other people call them Oxfords. I'm going to use both of them. Right here, we've got a cap toe, so it makes it a little bit more casual. But right here, we've got what's known as a closed lacing system. A closed lacing system is when the back part of the shoe, the quarter, actually goes under the front part of the shoe, known as the vamp. Now, this shoe right here in black is going to be a classic dress shoe. If I were to wear this with a dark colored suit, a white shirt, and dark colored necktie, right there, that's going to be a classic business suit combination. Next up, let's talk about the blucher. The big difference here is these are going to be more casual because of their open lacing system. So the back quarter of the shoe actually goes on top of the vamp. This style has always been considered to be more casual. You can also tell this is a more casual shoe because of the color. You're going to see bluchers in a variety of lighter colors, although you will still see Oxfords in lighter colors, but I think that lighter colored dress shoes in general are going to be more casual, and the design also signals that this is more casual. So I could wear this with a light colored suit, maybe if I'm just wearing a polo with it or a dress shirt, deciding to opt not to wear the necktie. Now, another classic shoe for old money is going to be the Brogue. Now, the Brogue, as you can tell right here, is because of all the design. And you're going to see Brogues both in open and closed lacing systems. This one actually has a closed lacing system, so a little bit dressier. And there are all types of Brogues out there. You're going to see quarter Brogues, you're going to see semi-Brogues, full Brogues, and even long wing Brogues. Now, full Brogues are also known as wingtip Brogues, and that's actually the style that I've got right here. The holes used to go all the way through. Nowadays, they do not. They're for straight up decoration. But right here, as you can see on the toe, we've also got a medallion. Again, it's just a design. It does make them a little bit harder to polish, but I really like the look of it, and it gives a bit of a more casual feel. And let's not forget loafers. What I love about loafers is that they come in a wide variety of styles. You can find them with rubber bottoms, so incredibly comfortable, even if you're going to be walking through Chicago during the summer. You're going to be covering 10 miles on your, going Miracle Mile, having a great time there on Michigan Street. Yeah, you can wear these in a variety of situations. This pair right here has a leather sole, and this is going to be the dressier. Can you still wear this with a suit? Yes, you can wear this with a casual suit. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it wearing with a business suit with a necktie. It's going to be, out of its element. You could even wear this with shorts. That being said, it's something I think every man should have a pair of loafers in his wardrobe. They can be dressed up, dressed down, and again, come in a variety of colors, materials, and different styles. Next up, let's talk about the polo shirt. I'm not talking about those cheap ones that you can find for 10, 15, 20 bucks. I'm talking about higher end polos. The beautiful thing about the polo, especially for an old money wardrobe, is how it can work with a number of the trousers. You can dress down a suit by wearing it with, a polo. You can actually dress up just a regular pair of trousers or shorts by pairing them with the polo. You're also going to see the polos are going to start to bend. And, I talked about going with a lot of neutral colors. And yes, you're going to see tons of white polos, dark navy polos in the colors, very similar to the suits. But you're also going to see polos in a variety of brighter colors, of colors that, just simply pop a bit more. And this is where I think in an old money wardrobe, you can really have fun with color and still find ways to mix and match it with the other items in your wardrobe. Now, you will see some polos out there in a variety of patterns and really bright over the top colors. I would stay away from those. They're not going to work with your interchangeable wardrobe, and they just they're just not something that's going to work in an old money type of style. Now, really quick, I want to talk about the necktie. You've probably heard the reports the necktie is dead. Guys, nothing could be further from the truth. Things in fashion and style, they trend one way and the other For the majority of men right now, wearing a necktie is not in. But if you look at history, the use of neckwear, this goes back thousands of years. And as long as, the elements, what happens when it gets cold? We still pull out the scarf. But scarves, why are they a variety of colors? Because color, especially around the neck, is a way to draw attention. Now, with an old money necktie, you're going to want to go with a classic color, looking at a variety of regimental stripes. Now, understand there are certain rules, especially over in the UK and that side of the pond, with wearing certain regimental stripes, but they're less followed over here in the United States. Although, if you went to an Ivy League, and that's what a lot of this stuff was, it signaled what club you were in. And that's were the only neckties men were actually able to wear going back over 100 years ago. Nowadays, it's not the case. And so you can bring in a variety of patterns, but I wouldn't go over the top. Go with, again, muted colors, muted tones. You can go with solids. I think navy is always a really nice. You can bring in woolen neckties. Paisleys, I think, are great if they're really small and subtle. Be very careful with dots. You don't want anything overly large. Small dots, though, are perfectly acceptable, but keep the patterns small and repeating. Next up, let's talk about chinos, also referred to as khakis, and the difference. Yeah, we're splitting hairs here. Really, remember, we talked about those rules at the beginning. The key here is to get the proper fit. A lot of you guys take care of your body. You want to have a pair of chinos, you want to have a pair of khakis that actually fit you well. Now, chinos come in a wide variety of colors, but I would stick again with the neutral palettes. That being said, if you want something different, maybe look at cavalry twill. That's a great option. Moleskin and corduroy, believe it or not, is going to be a classic look. Now, if you're going to go with corduroy, make sure that it's got 11 wales, not 7 wales. 7 wales, and that's the number of cords per inch. You want to have 11. It just looks dressier, and in my opinion, works better in a man's wardrobe. So we sort of covered accessories already when we talked about, hey, understand the rules. You definitely don't want to overdo it, but you want to make sure you've got the right accessories. When you wear a pair of trousers, pants, and they've got belt loops, you wear a belt. And if you're going to be wearing those, you wear a shirt that can tuck in. That being said, are you going to be tucking in a polo all the time? Not necessarily, but if you're wearing a dress shirt, if you're wearing a button down that needs to be tucked in, yes, you are. Now, you don't want anything over the top. You want to make sure that the measurements are about 1¼ inches. Anything over 1½ inches is going to be a more casual belt that you would wear with jeans. And remember the simple rule of matching metals with metals and matching leathers with leathers. Do they need to exactly match up? No, but it does look good whenever they're close. In addition, let's not forget the pocket square. If this is too much for you, then look at a simple white linen pocket square. You fold it the right way, just go with a presidential fold. And for some reason, if you're super conscious about this, you can actually just let it tuck right in out of the way. But I do find that, hey, just go ahead and with all my jackets, a trick that I do is that they already have pocket squares in them. I leave them. So when I put the jacket on, it's already there. If it works with the combination, I leave it. But a lot of times I'm not even thinking about it. And that's where I want you to get with pocket squares. Go with the classic presidential fold. It's going to match anything. Now, when it comes to watches, do you need to go out there and spend gobs of money? Do you need to buy a Rolex or something even higher end? No, I don't think you do. I would say in general, you want to keep it muted. If you're going to grab a Rolex, maybe look at the Classic Explorer, one of my favorite watches. Maybe you want to go look at Cartier. You want to look at the Classic Tank. You want to look at the Santos. Actually, I absolutely love the Santos. Anyone else out there love it? But you want to go with something that has been around, something that's classic. What you're going to find is a lot of guys. I remember I had a friend, and this guy did come from money, and he just loved his Tudor. And this was something, it was an old classic, had been passed down. It was like over 50 years old. And the guy just wouldn't part with it. It was a little bit beat up, but this is the thing. And old money, again, it's not like faking it till you make it here. What I'm trying to impart on you is there's a lot of things that we can take from an old money wardrobe, which is buy good quality and take care of it. So this first old money essential has been around since 1847. Commissioned for King George VI, it was initially envisioned as a casual house shoe. Today, though, this old money essential can be worn with a variety of outfits. You can pair it with shorts and a polo, and later that evening, match it with a casual suit. Evolving from the original 1850 Wildsmith loafer, since the 1950s, its official name, though, has been the Venetian loafer. That being said, throughout the world, and especially here in the United States, we know this loafer under a different name. The classic old money clothing item I'm talking about, gents, is the penny loafer. Now, really quick, let's define what a penny loafer is and what it isn't. Now, as you can see from the infographic here, the penny loafer, aka the Venetian style loafer, is easily recognizable by its lack of ornamentation. Specifically, it's a mid-heel slipper with an upper part that is slightly open to the kick of the foot and the ankle bone. Venetian loafers are slip-on shoes with no laces with a moccasin-style toe construction. Another key characteristic, and where traditionally some men would put a penny, is the slotted strap stitched across the vamp. In its simplest form, it's a slip-on loafer with a tongue and strap only. Now, when you compare Venetian-style loafers to other styles of loafers, such as horsebit loafers, tassel loafers, Belgian loafers, monk straps, which I know are technically not loafers, but they are slip-ons, and even boat shoes, which have the moccasin design but are using laces, you can see that Venetian-style, aka penny loafers, are so much cleaner, simpler, and in my opinion, versatile. And that's why, gents, I put them right here at the top of this list, because you can dress them up, you can dress them down. If you invest in a good pair of versatile penny loafers, you're going to be able to get your money's worth out of them. Now, the next old money essential on this list was initially defined by its fabric, but nowadays it's defined by its style. Now, the fabric has been a staple in men's wardrobe coming in on 200 years, but the style that made it famous only surfaced about 100 years ago. What old school wardrobe essential am I talking about? Gents, the Oxford shirt. Now, the Oxford shirt gets its name from Oxford fabric. And in case you're not familiar with fabric terminology, Oxford fabrics are a basic basket weave. That means, in general, multiple weft threads are crossed over an equal number of warp threads. And really quick, warp threads are threads that run vertically, top to bottom. Weft threads go horizontal, left to right. Now, of course, all this is being done on a loom, and the basket weave, as you can imagine, is one of the simplest, earliest weaves that mankind used whenever they started making fabrics. Now, what makes the Oxford fabric unique is that they sometimes mix in multiple colors. They don't have to, they can go all white, but sometimes you see with that white, they'll mix in a bit of blue, they'll mix in a bit of red, and this gives a two-tone appearance. On top of that, depending on the fineness of the yarn and the tightness of the weave, we can get various types of Oxford fabric, from plain Oxford to pinpoint Oxford to the most expensive and formal and hardest to weave Royal Oxford. Now, at this point, you may be wondering, Antonio, why do these details matter and why is this an old money essential? Well, the answer is because nowadays people don't associate the shirt necessarily with the fabric, they associate it with a particular style. That is the button-down collar. You see, at the beginning of the 20th century, Brooks Brothers had taken this shirt from the polo fields and they started marketing it to the masses. And Ivy League students just jumped on this. It looked formal, yet it was comfortable. It was a very versatile shirt that they could wear to class and that men all over the East Coast started to adopt. In fact, they are so timeless now, so commonplace, and so versatile. Again, you can dress these up with a suit. You can dress them down with a pair of shorts, roll up the sleeves. That's what I love about these essential items, is that you can bring them into your wardrobe and you can get tons of mileage from them. The next old money essential on this list is another clothing item whose cloth gave the item its actual name, and that is Chinos. So Chino cloth, by definition, is a twill fabric made from 100% cotton. Now, as it we seem to be talking about weaves, a basket weave, simple, twill weave, a little bit more complex and more dense and more durable. Not great for shirts necessarily, but amazing for jackets and especially trousers that you want to be able to stand up to a beating. Now, Chinos come in a wide variety of colors, and I do think that in a classic wardrobe, you can bring them all in, but the one that you're going to want to start with is the classic khaki, and khaki actually is a shade of brown, and that's why, this Chino, and sometimes you'll hear the name synonymous, Chinos, khakis, but understand, Chino, it's more about the twill weave and the pant style versus khaki is actually going to be a specific color. Now, when choosing a pair of Chinos, and if you go with the khaki color, make sure that the fit is right. You want these things to not necessarily fit as tight as jeans for a lot of guys, but they can be a little bit looser, but they should drape well, and you don't have to go with the twill fabric. If you want something that's a little bit lighter, maybe you want to go with a tropical weight wool, you can go with this color, and what I like about these is you can wear them with a wide variety of items in your wardrobe. They definitely have a bit of a summer feel to them, hence the original design, but you can wear these into the fall. You can definitely wear these in the spring. Now, if you get yourself a pair of Chinos, what to pair with them? How about the classic navy blazer? Another old school money essential that I think more men should bring into their wardrobes. If you really don't want to own a blazer, maybe look at the sports jacket. But today I'm gonna make the case for the blazer. Now, I know most of you guys are familiar with suits. Suits are jackets and trousers made from the same fabric, but odd jackets and blazers and sports jackets both fall under these. These are jackets made separately. They don't have a matching pair of trousers, and you can wear them with a wide range of odd trousers, from jeans to khakis, as mentioned earlier. And of course, as I mentioned, tons of colors of chinos. What I love about a blazer is that you can have fun with it, bringing a pair of red chinos with that navy blazer. Actually, that combination looks great and it's classic. But if you wanted to dress it up, maybe look at a pair of gray flannel trousers. And you can wear this during the winter with that navy blazer right there. And navy blazers in general are going to be navy dark blue in color. They technically do come in a wide variety of different fabrics, from hopsack to serge, but the majority of them are going to be made from 100% worsted wool. And navy blazers in general are going to have a little bit more fun with the buttons. We're going to sometimes see a nautical theme. We're going to have gold buttons. You're going to have silver buttons, sometimes mother of pearl buttons. And yes, I do think you can take a navy suit jacket, maybe that has lost its trousers. If it fits and looks well, just simply get the buttons changed out. All of a sudden, you got yourself a blazer. And in case you're wondering, formality-wise, blazers do fall below suits in formality, but it's that time that you simply want to dress up the look, especially if you want to go for a tie, if you're going to be on the East Coast, if you're going to be down in Florida, if you're going to be down, Marina Del Rey for a presentation in California. I think that the blazer looks really good. And again, it's got the whole nautical theme. And I don't know, you go into a lake in Wisconsin, you could probably still find a way to pull it off. And yeah, in Wisconsin, I assume you're going out for a nice dinner, not necessarily going to the bar for a fish fry. Now, I know it's hot in a lot of areas of the world right now, but let's talk about jackets. Now, in particular, the waxed jacket is a type of hip-length jacket made from waxed cotton cloth, and it's iconic of British and Irish country life. Now, Barbour is the classic brand, and there are tons of examples, but I think that there are so many companies now making these waxed jackets. Really, what I love about these is that they are simple in design. For a lot of people, they don't want leather. They want something durable, something they can go through the brush, actually hunt in, or just simply wear around and have a really rugged look. These jackets fit the bill. And this is simply because they were originally designed for men that were out hunting, that were out fishing, that were out shooting. Now, on the inside, historically, we're going to find a cotton jacket used for insulation, keeping you warm. But nowadays, you're going to find all different types of materials. I really like that they've gone towards performance materials. Cotton isn't usually the best insulator. But the key with the waxed jacket is that the outside of it is going to have to be waxed. And this is one reason that some men stay away from them, is because you do need to, once a season, go over and re-wax them. But if you do this over time, and this is really what gives this jacket its character, is that it starts to take on different hues, different looks. You can actually even use colored waxes depending on the color of the jacket. It just really has this nostalgic, really cool look to it, and I highly recommend them. That being said, two details if you're going to get a classic waxed jacket. Look for the tartan inside. That's going to be a particular pattern. It's going to be a bit of brightness, a little bit of color, and around the collar, you want to go for something that has leather or corduroy. Now, this next one is really small, literally, but it's something I think really adds a lot of class to an outfit. I've got a good friend that he actually had a number of shirts made, and he made sure that all of them had this, and that was room for cufflinks. So before there were buttons, cufflinks were the go-to. That was actually the norm. And what's nice about cufflinks, especially if you send your shirts off to the laundry and they get damaged, the buttons and everything, is that you control that. You actually, there are almost, my buddy, he has no buttons on any of his shirts. Everything actually he can place in, and he does this even with shirts that he wears without jackets. Now, is that practical for everybody? No. But if you get the chance to be able to bring some cuff links into your wardrobe, and you've got some shirts that are going to have the French cuff, or even you can go for a convertible cuff. There are different cuffs that you can get. Look around. Some of them are going to be custom, but I find that this is a really elegant, simple way to be able to level up the look, and it's definitely old school. Now, this next one seems obvious, but I got to state it, and that is having a nice classic watch that is mechanical, preferably. Now, you can go with quartz, and there's some amazing quartz movements out there, but I think in general, what you want to have is something that is mechanical, because that is really why a lot of people nowadays wear a watch. If you want to accurately tell time, simply look at your phone or get something that's electronic. But if you want something that is going to be about your relationship with time, something that you can pass on, something that's going to be an heirloom, something that is going to maintain a high level of value, then you want to invest in a watch. And yes, the higher end watches are going to be expensive. You could be spending thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. But don't sleep on others. Seiko, I think it's Orient, a number of these brands that, for a couple $100, you can get a watch that looks really good, is going to get the job done. And maybe it's your placeholder until you can afford a more expensive watch. Or maybe you realize, hey, everything I need is here, and it's going to be the sentimental value you attach to the watch when you travel the world, when you're out doing things and achieving results, and you wear that watch as you're doing it. Now, these next two items, I think the majority of men actually don't own nowadays, because even me, I oftentimes lounge around in my athletic gear. Guys, get yourself a nice pair of pajamas and a beautiful bathrobe, something that's incredibly comfortable that, yes, you can be walking around, naked underneath it, but you feel good, something that you can wear around the house. Having these items, especially if you've got a lady over, all of a sudden, you're not looking like a slob, you're looking like you're well put together. Now, sadly, there aren't a whole lot of options out there, and I've actually considered putting together and starting a line. If you think that's a good idea, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Next up on this list, I think having a really nice weekender. Yes, I could have put luggage, I could have put briefcases, and I think these things are nice depending on what your needs are. But I know for me, I do a lot of traveling just over the weekend. I need enough for 2 nights. I don't need a whole lot. I like something that I can easily carry, throw over my shoulder, something that I definitely don't have to check. And gents, there are tons of options out there depending on your size, your needs. I would advise though, going with something that you look at it, it's got beautiful hardware, it's got a beautiful, simple, clean design, not so big that again, you're gonna have to check it. I do find a lot of people when they go with a larger bag, they fill it up versus smaller bags force you to travel light. But yeah, classic weekender, especially in leather with a simple, clean design, boom, right there. So what does Johnny Agnelli, JFK, Alain Delon, and James Bond have in common? The answer? All 4 of these timelessly stylish men loved wearing the Johnny collar. Now, what's a Johnny collar, you may ask? It's a no-button, open collar found on polo shirts. In particular, knitted polo shirts. And that, gentlemen, is the first old money item on today's list, the knitted polo shirt. Now, if you know your style history, you know the polo shirt has been around for over 100 years. Made popular to the masses in the 1920s by René Lacoste, it was refined by the Italians in the 1930s when they came out with the first knitted polos. Now, good knitted polos can be relatively lightweight, anywhere from 12 to 16 gauge. Gauge, of course, being the number of needles per square inch. Another characteristic of a great knit polo is going to be a fully fashioned construction. This is where it's knitted to shape so seams lie flat, and overall it gives the garment a more elegant drape. Now, as mentioned, a lot of times you'll see the stylish Johnny collar, but on occasions with more casual versions, you'll see 1, 2, and 3 buttons as well. Now, you'll find these shirts are often ribbed at the hems and the cuff, which overall creates a subtle waist suppression and a more tailored silhouette around the arms. As for the fabrics, you can see anything from a plain weave to vertical ribs or even tone-on-tone vertical striping. But as a rule, most knit polos aren't going to really have much, if any, branding. As to why this is a classic old money garment I think should be in every man's wardrobe, well, first up, texture hierarchy. A fine gauge knit sits above any cotton t-shirt and just below the tight weave we'd see on a poplin dress shirt. It has an elegant collar that frames the face. The fabric almost always has a bit of a drape and sometimes even a bit of a sheen. And of course, the heritage association with tennis clubs, yacht decks, spy movies, and titans of industry. Now, speaking of t-shirts, there's undershirts, there's graphic tees, there are plain tees, there are quality tees, and then there are luxury tees. And similar to the knit polo, there is the knit t-shirt. Now, for a lot of guys, the idea of a luxury t-shirt, well, that comes off as an oxymoron. But for those in the know who want a casual option sans collar and who have the build to pull it off, guys, a luxury tee with that beautiful drape can totally elevate your casual look. Next up on this list, we've got the classic white button down. Now, depending on your situation and needs, there are tons of fabric options out there. For cooler summer weather, maybe you want to go with a thicker cotton weave like Oxford. If it's hot in your area, a lightweight cotton poplin or jumping over to linen. And an option that I personally love, performance fabrics. And a guy that's been in the clothing industry for coming in on 20 years, I can say it's amazing to see the strides that they've made creating garments that look good and perform when it comes to breathability, stretch, and not having to iron. Because let's face it, that's one of the things a lot of guys hate about linen is that it wrinkles like no other, although that is part of its character. But seriously, a lot of guys just don't want to have to deal with that. Next up, let's talk about footwear. So you got a few options here. If you want ultra casual, let's look to some maybe braided sandals, which I know aren't going to be for everybody, but they do have a long storied history. They do a decent job of protecting the toes, and I think if kept simple in a shade of brown, they can look good. Another often less expensive option is going to be espadrilles. So these originate out of Spain, and one of the reasons they're so inexpensive is they're usually made from an inexpensive cotton rope-like material, and in general, unless you buy some higher end ones, they're made usually just to last one season. That being said, their elegance is in their simplicity and their heritage with the elite that travel. Now, of course, if that's not your thing, you could always go with a pair of simple white sneakers, although I really like the option of suede sneakers. And if you really want to step it up, let's bring in some classic loafers. So the fancier styles we're going to see out there are going to be Belgian, Italian, and tassel loafers. Besides a tassel, these are going to be relatively simple, although occasionally you will see them in a little bit more extravagant colors. My favorite option though here is the classic penny loafer style. When I'm looking for summer loafers like this, I always look for a low vamp. That's where it's going to expose more of the sock, more of the foot, versus a pair of classic loafers made for more four-season wear. That low vamp is going to make the shoe a little bit more casual, but cooler to wear in the summer. Next up, let's cover a couple accessories. First up, sunglasses. There are three classic styles that every man should know: aviators, wayfarers, and Clubmasters. Now, I'm assuming that most of you guys have a pair of classic aviators. That's a great start, and I'm going to skip those for this video. Now, the styles I want to bring your attention to are the other two that are often overlooked, the Wayfarer and Clubmaster style. Now, for a lot of guys, when they put on a pair of Wayfarers, they feel that it's too much. It's too in your face. The frame is too strong, too high contrast with their looks, grabbing too much attention. I get it. Not for everybody, but if you do go with this option, just go with the classic black. It works in pretty much any situation and is a fun classic style. However, if you really want to level up, look to the Clubmasters. In particular, look for a tortoise design. Now, I'm not recommending you grab anything made from animal product. In fact, finding a pair of glasses that are made from actual tortoise shell, I think, is next to impossible. No, nowadays, that refers to the actual pattern, and we're going to see it in a variety of strong plastics. And for me, when it comes to old money, when it comes to a sophisticated, timeless style that will set you apart from the crowd, I love this look. The next classic accessory, the weekender bag. Now, most of us have backpacks, carry-on luggage, even duffel bags, but a proper weekender in most men's wardrobes gets overlooked. And really, that's too bad, because this soft piece of luggage is incredibly versatile, and as the name implies, it's large enough to hold everything you need for anywhere from 2 to 5 days. Most weekenders have a defined rectangle-like shape. Longer handles make it easy to carry and to throw into the back of the car. Now, I personally recommend, if you're going to invest in one, pick one up in leather, so as it ages, it looks better. Now, weekenders come in a wide variety of different materials, from waxed canvas to ballistic nylons to simple cotton to leather. And of course, many use combinations of those materials. Next up, we've got the classic straw hat. Now, the Panama is the most famous, but it's also one of the most pronounced. If you're going to wear this hat, you need to practice. You need to have the confidence to be able to pull it off. Summer straw hats can also come in the shapes of fedoras, trilbies, and occasionally you'll even see some boaters out there. Which one's going to suit you? A lot of this depends on your face shape, your head size. So my best advice here, if you really want to wear a hat, go into a hat store, try on a variety of different styles, and choose the one you feel comfortable wearing. And remember, choose function over style, because then you're more likely to wear it. And the more you wear it, the more confident you'll feel. Now, when it comes to belts, there's not really any hard and fast rules here, but I would maybe try a braided belt. It's a bit more casual, and I think can look really good with the next item we're about to talk about, a classic pair of light colored trousers. Now, when it comes to your pants, if you want to go for an old money look, let's drop the jeans, at least for the summer. Because seriously, gents, you got so many better, cooler options. They got the classic chinos made of cotton. These were brought back from soldiers serving over in the Philippines over 100 years ago. And these soldiers brought them back because they loved them. They wore them in their off time. They were light colored. They were great weekend wear. And to this day, chinos are a casual staple in any well-dressed man's wardrobe. But if chinos and cotton aren't your thing, then look to all the other options you've got when it comes to light colored trousers. Some of my favorite colors are cream, stone, and off-white. And great materials to consider besides cotton are going to be linen cotton blends, and of course, performance fabrics. Like I said, these things have come a long way, and you got tons of options out there. They're going to be breathable, lightweight, not require ironing, and they look good. And of course, when we're talking old money, we can't forget the classic blazer in navy, or if you're really eclectic, maybe go with a regatta stripe. But seriously, a dark colored blazer like this, a white shirt with those light colored trousers I was just talking about, an easy, simple, classic combination. So a lot of people think that the secret to an old money summer style wardrobe is the clothing. Classic pieces like blazers, polo shirts, linen shirt jackets, linen trousers, chinos, tailored shorts, and of course accessories like pocket squares, neckties, and classically styled sunglasses. But gents, having the right clothing is only part of the equation. Seriously, gents, you gotta know how to mix and match, how to put the pieces together. Now, to have an old money style this summer, these are the 7 rules that you need to know. First up, quality over quantity. It's better to spend more and get something you wear 100 times and you absolutely love than to be able to get something on sale that you never wear. Next up, timeless style over trends. Old money is not about getting into the latest fashion. It's about wearing something that, yeah, was in style 10 years ago and will be in style 10 years from now. Next up, focus on fit. Seriously, guys, it is that simple. Make sure everything is adjusted to fit you, or when you're buying it off the rack, it fits you really close to perfect. And seriously, gents, this is the biggest mistake I see so many guys make. They go out there and they spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on expensive clothing, and they don't get it adjusted to fit their body. Spend that extra bit of money or do it yourself and make sure that the clothing fits if you want that old money summer aesthetic. Next up, embrace subtlety. This means understated elegance. You're not wearing clothing that's screaming for attention. Everything you're wearing is high quality, but it just simply looks good on you. You look great. In fact, the compliment you want is that people don't remember exactly what you wore. All they knew is that you were well put together and that you just exuded class. Well, how to specifically do that? Well, make sure the clothing you choose has a conservative color palette. Basically, the majority of the clothing in your wardrobe is going to be made up of neutral and versatile colors. We're talking navy, beige, gray, and white. Now, of course, you can bring in other colors to add a bit of spice, but those four hues right there are going to work really well with each other, and they're so interchangeable. And that's what we're shooting for here. Versatile clothing you can spend a little bit more money on that at the same time exudes elegance and class. Next up, you want to accessorize wisely. Think of your accessories as links in a chain, and a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. If you mess up on the accessories, it can ruin the entire outfit. So if a tie is required, don't go cheap. Make sure to get a silk necktie. When you're wearing a jacket, make sure to go with a simple pocket square fold. You don't have to be over the top here. Right here, a simple, clean, presidential fold with white. With your sunglasses, they don't have to have a big logo on them. No, just go for a classic design that works for the frame of your face. And finally, you're going to build confidence through practice. This means simply putting in the reps, getting used to wearing the clothing. So many guys think that jackets, that dressing a little bit nicer, going for that old money aesthetic somehow means the clothing is going to be uncomfortable. Gents, it's not uncomfortable. It's just unfamiliar, especially when you go for higher quality pieces. In fact, I find that dressing well is more comfortable than dressing down. I almost feel naked dressing down nowadays. And when you get to that sense of point, you know you've put in the reps. It's like going to the gym. Initially, you feel out of place there. You don't know what all those machines are. But once you put in the reps, once you've been to the gym a few dozen times, you just know where things are and it feels good to go. Now here in a second, I'm going to show you a variety of outfit combinations and why they've got that old money summer aesthetic. But before I do that, I want to share with you a secret to the old money summer aesthetic, and that is understanding patterns. You see, when it comes to old money style, there's a bit of a language here. A lot of clothing and the history on this is about separating classes. I know, unfair, but that's just simply the history on this. Nowadays, though, it's actually knowing the terminology and the language and how pieces go together. And one of the most confusing parts, I think, for most guys is patterns. How do you match? What do you go with? So the simplest rule I can tell you with pattern is to keep it simple. When you're starting off, the majority of your clothing should be in solid colors. That being said, in a typical combination of a jacket, shirt, and trousers, bringing in at least one pattern can really enhance the overall look. Now, for the majority of men out there, I'm going to say we start with simple patterns in the shirt. You want to look for a variety of stripes going up and down, usually keeping the shirts blue, white, then bring in blue stripes on a white backdrop. You can bring in a variety of other colors, but usually the stripes going up and down is the simplest pattern to first add. Another easy place to bring in a pattern is going to be the necktie and the pocket square. We're also going to see a lot of unique patterns in these particular items, such as dots, as paisleys, and other simple, repeating, small geometric patterns. But if you're watching this video, I know you want to take it to the next level. So how to start bringing in patterns on jackets. Understand the various patterns you're going to see out there. First up, we've got herringbone. Now, what I love about herringbone is it adds a bit of visual interest. From a distance, it looks like a solid in most cases, but as you get up closer, all of a sudden, it's got this very subtle bit of texture to it. Basically, what it does is adds a bit of interest to the clothing without being overwhelming. Now, you'll find it in a variety of different jackets. You'll even find it in suits. What I love is herringbone is incredibly versatile. You can dress it up to a degree. You can dress it down if the herringbone has a variation, kind of a high contrast with it. You'll see this with a little bit of gray and black or black and white and that type of combination. But you also will see it in shirts as well. Now, normally a herringbone is going to be a heavier weave. So if you do see it, understand it's not always going to be great for summer unless the jacket is unlined, which I'll get into in a second. But on shirts, sometimes it can be too heavy of a weave to wear during the summer. That being said, it's a beautiful pattern that every man should look to add into his wardrobe. I mentioned earlier unlined jackets. Let me go ahead and show you on the inside what we mean by an unlined jacket. So an unlined jacket, notice right in here, there is no lining on the back. And this is important because it makes the jacket cooler, perfect for the summer, just allows you to be able to wear it and be able to breathe, and it's going to feel cooler. In addition, I want to point out that unlined jackets in general are rarer because they're more expensive to manufacture. Basically, you got to make sure it looks good on the inside, which costs a manufacturer time, and it really is just something you see on higher quality garments. Next up, we've got Glen Pad. Now, this is a woven pattern featuring small and large checks, typically in muted colors like gray, beige, or blue. Now, you'll occasionally see it in shirts shirts, and what I like is these shirts are oftentimes lightweight, so great for summer, especially if you're not going to be wearing a jacket. And you roll the sleeves up, just to really gives a bit of texture to it, but I love it in jackets. Again, it's going to be usually a lighter weave, so it's great for summer wear and just simply adds texture with, again, not overwhelming the eyes. With this pattern, you get sophistication and depth. If you want an old money type of summer look, definitely find a sports jacket, maybe even a shirt in this pattern. So that being said about patterns, let's get into outfits. First up, we've got this brown linen jacket with a white cotton shirt. Notice the pocket square isn't grabbing a whole lot of attention, got a small subtle pattern, and then we've got the light colored cotton chinos. Love the jacket here, gives a bit of contrast, brings the outfit together, and right here, this is just screaming old money aesthetic. And if you can't tell, this is the outfit that I have put together as well. And similar to the model we see in the photo, I've got the brown hair, the brown jacket. When you can repeat colors like that, it just simply brings the outfit together and makes it look really good. Now, what if you've got a little bit darker complexion? You wanted to change it up. Let's look at that same outfit, but let's bring in a necktie and a blue linen jacket. All of a sudden, see, you hit the higher contrast, pretty much got the same trousers. The pocket square now has higher contrast, and that higher contrast right there is gonna make the formality of the outfit dress up a bit, especially with that jacket being darker. But look right here, this is still a perfect summer old money type of feel outfit. Now, what if you want to keep it really simple? You're not about jackets. It's way too hot for that. And you don't need to dress up for it. Guys, look at this brown linen shirt here. Again, we've got the same trousers. He's wearing it untucked, which is fine for this combination. He rolls up the sleeves a bit. Just simple, clean, elegant. Now, really quick, you may be wondering, what's the difference between linen and cotton? Cotton is the most common material out there, and it's got a lot of great properties, but both of these come from plants. Linen is actually older, been used by man for a longer period of time, but one of the issues with linen is that it wrinkles a lot. This is because of the shape of the actual fiber. That being said, it does have the amazing property of actually wicking away moisture, and it's more breathable. Hence why so many people love linen for the summer. Now, what if you want the hybrid of a jacket and a shirt? Well, look at shirt jackets. And right here, we've got a linen shirt jacket. What I also like about this combination is he's going with a light color on top of a light color. Notice this t-shirt is simple, very similar in color to the linen jacket. And then he's got those dark colored trousers. Me, I really like keeping my trousers dark because just practicality purposes. I've got 7 kids in my house. Think we're all over the place, a baby. You sit in things, darker colors are just easier to wash stains out of. That being said, I love lighter colors up on top because they do a good job of reflecting off, the hot rays of the sun and keeping me cooler. Now, what if you wanted to flip that look? Okay, look at this combination right here. We've got that linen shirt jacket in a blue. And then we've got a little bit darker of a blue. So I like that combination there. Not too much contrast. And then he's got the lighter trousers on the bottom. This really works for this gentleman's complexion. And overall, again, a great summer look. If this is you, if this is what you want to go for, yeah, run with it. But again, you don't have to overthink this. Again, you want a classic white shirt with blue stripes. That is a classic look, as you can see here. Very elegant. This guy holding the jacket over to the side because it's obviously a little bit hot. You can roll the sleeves up, still look good. To me, it has a little bit more of a business aesthetic to it, but I think anybody could pull this off. That being said, with the right confidence, the right attitude, the right sunglasses, I think you could pull this off. Now, what about polos? So these soft collared shirts that derive from the Henley are going to be in general more casual than dress shirts or even casual button downs because of the length of the sleeves. That being said, you've got a lot of great combinations here. And when I'm looking at a polo, I want to make sure it's the right length so I can wear this untucked, which is how most polos should be worn. In addition, I love it around the sleeves when there's a bit of an elastic. Now, the most common colors are going to be whites and blues, but don't sleep on greens or browns. Again, depending on your natural complexion, you may find that these color combinations just help you stand out from the crowd, and they'll work with a lot of the jackets I talked about earlier. And you probably noticed that these polo shirts are a bit more elegant looking. That's because they're made from a merino wool. This enables them to have a really beautiful drape. Just make sure that you clean and you take care of them properly. Now, what about terry shirts? So these are very casual. They're made from a toweling fabric, oftentimes coming from cotton, but the overall styling of them really sets them apart from a lot of other shirts. They don't work for every type of body build, so you need to make sure that, hey, you have either the guns or you've got a slim profile. If you're carrying a bit of weight around the midsection, probably not a great look for you, but for a lot of, thinner, or maybe if you're really well built, this particular style can look great on you. Now, as that we're talking about summer style for old money, why in the world would we talk about sweaters? Because you're spending some time maybe out on the boat, out on the water. Let's face it, even if you're out in the desert at night, things get cooler. What's nice about a zip, 3/4 zip, maybe even a full front zip, is this is easy to take on, put off, and it's a lot more flexible for a lot of people than a jacket. Worst case, you're with a woman, you can loan her your sweater. Point being is you're going to come off as a gentleman. Sweaters are also great for creating that layering look, and they do a good job of bringing the outfit together. And even the simple t-shirt can get an old money treatment. This t-shirt right here, made with a combination of cashmere, wool, and cotton. That blended combination, what does it do? It gives a bit of thickness to the t-shirt. It also gives it a beautiful drape. Now that may not sound like much, but when you put this thing on, you are going to feel the difference, and you are actually going to see. And that's the key with old money style, is it's not just the individual items, but it's how you put them together, the materials that they're made from, and just the overall presentation that you're able to create when you combine things properly. Let's see if you can guess the first old money cold weather item on today's list. So the first clue is it has a boat neckline to ensure that the neck is protected. Next up, it has high, narrow armholes. This ensures it can be worn underneath a jacket. The next clue, and perhaps its most distinctive characteristic, is that there is no distinction between the front and the back of this garment. And lastly, it's named after the island it originates from that sits between France and England. Gentlemen, we're talking about the Guernsey sweater. Now, the history of this sweater goes back to the 16th century. Seriously, the island of Guernsey got permission from the crown to import wool, and in turn, they would export knitted goods right back to England. Now, initially, the hard-wearing Guernsey sweater was knitted for the local fishermen. The traditional color is navy blue, although you will find them in a variety of different colors, and it's usually made from a hard-wearing, tough wool that can feel scratchy. That being said, because of its history, durability, and longevity, this sweater today can be found being worn by royals, and not surprisingly, military units around the world have even adopted them. In fact, if you go back to history, Lord Nelson said that these sweaters were fit for the Navy, but the Navy never technically adopted them. Now, getting back to the technical details, what I love about this piece of clothing is how functional it is. The texture details, the ribbing, you're going to find it around the arms, you're going to find it on the sleeves. All of this makes something that fits close to the body, and because of the nature of the wool, it's going to keep you warm even if it gets wet. The next cold weather old money item on today's list, the Brogue boot. Now, first up, you need to understand the different types of brogues out there. You've got quarter brogues, which are going to have the perforated leather right there on the front. Next up, you've got the semi-brogues. They're going to be very similar to the quarter, but going to have that medallion right there on the front. Next up, you've got long wings. These are distinctive because of the curve right up there at the toe. And if you look, it goes all the way the length of the boot or the shoe. And the last common style is going to be full brogues, also known as wingtips. Now, if this was a warm weather video, I'd maybe talk about the shoes, but let's talk about boots, the extra protection around the ankle. Now, you can tell right here with the curvature, this is a pair of full brogues or wingtips. And because of the suede, the texture look, these are perfect for the cooler temperatures, and it just invokes the season. Now, if you know the history on these type of shoes, you know that these go back hundreds of years. They were marsh shoes. The idea is that you would wear these in a wet environment, and because the holes used to go all the way through, whenever your shoes would fill up with water, the water would be able to drain out, and in theory, your feet would dry quicker. Now, to me, that sounds incredibly uncomfortable, but I will say I'm happy for the style that it stuck around, because this textured overall look just gives it a higher and more refined feel whenever you match it with anything in your wardrobe. The next old money winter accessory is to let your hair grow out, to get it a little bit longer and go for one of those tousled looks that we see with the old money hairstyles. Think JFK Jr., Alain Delon. We're talking that thick, tousled hair look that just looks like you don't have a care in the world. At the same time, because you're letting your hair grow a little bit longer, it, of course, is doing a better job insulating and keeping you warm. So the next cold weather old money item on today's list is an example of an item whose name has become almost synonymous with the brand that popularized it. I'm talking, gentlemen, about the Barbour jacket, also known as the waxed cotton jacket. Now, the company Barbour did not invent the waxed jacket, but they did help make it popular, especially by providing this to the royals and to the elites of England, for hundreds of years, and making this jacket and perfecting it and really creating, I think, a timeless piece that every man should consider adding to his wardrobe, especially if you live in an area that gets a lot of rain, that gets a little bit of snow, and you want something that's going to look strong, going to be durable, and will honestly last your entire lifetime. Now, as the name implies, the jacket is made with a cotton material that has been treated with wax, and that's what gives it its properties, and to be able to keep the wearer warm in rain, snow, and high wind. Now, over the last 75 years, with the advance in plastics, we've seen really lighter weight jackets come in, and they do an even better job of actually resisting water and wind, but the Barbour jacket has them beat when it comes to durability. Seriously, if you're going to be out in the woods, you're going to be going up against thorns, bush, then this is something that, it's definitely going to be able to take that licking, and it's going to look good because you get to reapply that wax every season, sometimes multiple times a season, if this is an everyday wear. And that's why I've got this item on the list, because it's a lifetime item that you will treat, that you will have to work on, but guess what? All of a sudden it becomes better with age. It develops character. Now, the characteristics here are going to be two large ammunition pockets, because this jacket was historically used for hunters, people that just needed those big pockets to be able to carry things around. It's also usually going to have two warming pockets up near the chest. You can find this jacket made by a wide variety of brands nowadays. That being said, you can still get the original, I think, for a reasonable price. And again, a big part of it is because of the material. It's inexpensive to make them. On the other hand, this item, because of the material, especially if they use authentic materials, can cost you a bit more. The cold weather old money item I'm talking about, gentlemen, is the tweed jacket. Now, the tweed jacket has a storied history, and that storied history is in the fabric itself. And when I say tweed, let me clarify. There's all different types of tweeds out there. One of the most common ones you're going to see is Donegal tweed. Now, Donegal tweed is relatively easy to match. With the large amount of white in this is going to be a fabric that I find really is pretty versatile. It is great in a jacket. It's going to be a medium weight, so it will keep you warm. And you can find a number of companies selling this type of tweed jackets, so the prices aren't going to be too bad. Next up, we've got herringbone, and this is going to be one of the most common patterns we see here in the United States. So if you happen to go into a Brooks Brothers, or if you're just looking at a modern manufacturer and what they're selling online, you're going to see a lot of herringbones out there. What I like about this fabric is it's relatively affordable, and you're going to find it in a wide variety of different colors and combinations, from grays to greens to brown. And from a distance, herringbone looks like a solid, so it's going to be easy to match, but when you get up close, the pattern is what makes it distinctive, and it's one of my favorite fabrics for a tweed jacket. Now, there are tweed fabrics that are harder to match, and ones I'm not going to recommend for your first jacket if you're considering this. Those are going to be houndstooth, shepherd's check. I personally think they're beautiful fabrics, but one of the things I talk about is interchangeability, and if you're going to invest in a tweed jacket, I want you to get something that you can wear the heck out of. And with that being said, let's now talk about perhaps the most famous tweed fabric, in which most people think of tweed, but most people don't know the story behind this, is Harris tweed. Now, Harris tweed is going to be expensive because it's got this rough surface. It is a very tight, heavier weave, thick, strong, and most importantly, only tweed that's woven in the outer Hebrides can have this title. So basically, it's a controlled fabric that's beautiful, but that does drive up the cost. Having said all this, gents, having a tweed jacket in a brown or in a gray, even a green, you're going to find that it's going to match so many things in your wardrobe. I love wearing them with jeans, maybe a nice dress shirt. All of a sudden, yes, it's not a suit, but I'll tell you, you can find more situations to wear this in, and it looks amazing. And when you walk in a room, you look like the man in charge. When you go to a brunch, all of a sudden, people are looking and treating you with respect. In my opinion, gents, in a cool weather situation, a tweed jacket is one of the easiest ways to level up your style and give off that old money cool vibe. Speaking of old school cool, let's talk about corduroy. Yeah, you wore that fabric when you were a kid, and that's too bad that you haven't worn it since, because this is, especially in trousers, one of the easiest ways to create a feeling of texture in your style. And if you know your history on corduroy, you know that you've got 7 wales, you've got 11 wales. You're occasionally going to see something in between there, but in general, a man, you want to be gearing towards the 11 wales. It's just going to look a little bit more refined. It's a little bit more comfortable, and when it comes to warmth, it's got that napped surface, which does a good job of trapping air. It's going to be warmer than a pair of jeans, and oh so much stylish if you choose the right color. Might I suggest a dark, rich brown, maybe a dark green, maybe even going with a dark blue. All of a sudden, you're going to find that goes with a lot of the same outfits that your jeans go with, but all of a sudden, you're stepping up the style. Now, the key here is to find the right pair of corduroys, because you're going to find some cheaper ones out there which are going to have a bad fit. No, you want to get something that fits and complements your build. I know we're seeing a lot of higher waisted pants. Believe it or not, that is a classic style, especially if you wear it with suspenders. I'm not going to recommend it for you if you don't already wear suspenders, but again, make sure you get the fit. Maybe spend a little bit more money, go into a higher end menswear store, try these on, and if that's not for you, a couple other options are going to be cavalry twill, or maybe look to moleskin. Both of these, again, are going to have a napped surface, and what I mean by that is it's a three-dimensional surface where you've got a little bit of extra fabric that's been treated to come off, so it's going to make it nice and soft. Another gray flannel trousers, one of my personal favorites. Guys, by stepping up your trousers, again, jeans are great, but put those in the closet. You know, they're fine during, the fall, but when it starts getting cool, bring in these ones, and you don't need to go with any patterns. You don't need to go with outlandish colors. Wear them in the colors you're already wearing, but that texture is what's going to help them stand apart. Now, the next item on this list has only been around since the 1960s. That being said, it became popular very quickly in the 1960s, especially in the shooting crowds in England. Basically, there was an American colonel that had retired over in the UK, and he developed this quilted jacket. Now, the original jackets were called Huskies, and they were using a material that had been developed for the US Air Force. So this wasn't, it was just simply a functional jacket that was incredibly lightweight. But because of the quilting, because of the insulation, because of the air it trapped, it kept the wearers warm. Now, initially, Stephen Gillis, that American colonel I was talking about, him and his wife were making these jackets, but it got out of control and they started a factory that was then acquired by an Italian company. But the original Huskies were very square. They really didn't have much of a shape to them. It was all about the function, but people didn't care. Nowadays, though, you're going to find them in a variety of colors. They're going to be more form-fitting, but that original quilt is going to be there. That is the classic pattern we're looking for. And again, this is great, especially if you fit it a little bit closer to the body. It can be used as a layering piece, or it can be worn as outerwear. Now, this next item doesn't do much for keeping you warm, but it just feels right during the cooler weather. Definitely got that old school cool to it, and that is the woolen necktie. So you're going to find these type of neckties with a variety of patterns and colors, but what I like about these, especially when worn maybe with a silk jacket or something sleeker looking, is it just brings in that texture, that wool look, and it does bring the neck together, especially if you need to wear a tie, you need to dress up a bit, but it's not an occasion that you have to wear a silk necktie, which is always going to be dresser. No, the woolen necktie, right there, that woven necktie, those just simply have a feeling of warmth, and I think that they can look amazing. Now, when it comes to headwear, this is a tough one. I prefer a flat cap. I've got those made from tweed, from various woven woolen materials, and I think they look beautiful. They do keep the head warm. They keep the snow off the head, and I wear them. I've even got some, maybe a Stormy Cromber, although I wouldn't consider that old money. I don't know, let me know in the comments. And I probably should bring up the Astrakhan, but I just can't get, for me, it feels like a James Bond villain when I see this hat, and the fact it doesn't cover up the ears, but I know that they are warm. All right, so let's be clear. When I'm talking about dressing rich, this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about dressing in a manner that you just look effortlessly stylish. The Italians, of course, have a fancy word for it, sprezzatura. In any case, how does a man go about building a rich-looking wardrobe without breaking the bank? Rule number one is to prioritize. And these are the three questions you want to ask yourself. First up, you want to ask, what's your daily dress code? You want to understand what clothing do you need for your profession? What clothing do you want to wear just in your day-to-day lifestyle to send the message you want to send to the world? Next up, what items are the most versatile ones in your wardrobe? These are items that can be mixed and matched. They can be changed up. They're interchangeable with everything else in your wardrobe. They usually are going to be of a neutral color. They're going to be of a design that they're just going to work with a wide variety of other pieces of clothing. And the third question is, what gaps do you want to fill in your wardrobe? Do you have plenty of shirts, but not too many pairs of trousers? No jackets, but plenty of shoes. So with these three questions, if you can imagine three triangles, we are going to overlap them in a Venn diagram, and that center triangle, this right here is the priority. When you've got limited time, when you've got a limited budget, these are the areas of your wardrobe you're going to want to focus in on. By focusing in on picking up the items that are within your daily dress code, are versatile, and are already missing in your wardrobe, you're going to be able to fill those gaps and get the biggest return on your investment. Rule number two to dressing rich on a budget is to only buy quality, not quantity. I know, it sounds simple, but I see so many guys fall for the sale. it's 80% off. It's cheaply made, but gosh, it's 80% off. No, don't buy it. If it doesn't fit you, if it doesn't fit your lifestyle, if you're not going to use it, the most expensive items in your wardrobe are the ones that you never wear. And so many guys fall into, yes, it was a great deal, but it was the wrong size. It didn't suit. It wasn't interchangeable. It didn't work with your existing needs. And all of a sudden you're getting rid of it. Or worse, it's sitting in your closet, just filling up and taking space. Having said that, you may ask the question, how does a man spot quality? The best advice I can give you is to walk into the best menswear store in your area. When you're traveling, go into a store whose maybe watches, clothing, perfumes, whatever it may be, you maybe even can't afford. You're not in there to make a purchase. You're in there to learn. Talk to the sales associate. Ask what does make this quality. Not all of them are going to know, but some of the better ones are going to be able to point out. They're going to be able to break out, hey, the notes of the fragrance. They're going to be able to show you the watch and the design, the history on the brand. Maybe if you walk into a clothier, into a tailor, they're going to be able to show you the different fabrics, the stitching, the build, the quality. These are lessons that you'll take with you as you're out there looking at clothing in general. Eventually, you'll be able to walk into a box store like a Men's Warehouse and be able to spot what is good, what is okay. But then you'll go into a higher end menswear store, maybe like Suit Supply, and you're going to be able to, wow, there is a big difference here. Maybe you're traveling over in Italy, you're over in London, you could go down Savile Row or Jermyn Street, and all of a sudden you see really high end. And when you see this, when you touch it, when you feel it, all of a sudden this is registering in your brain. So whenever you spot high quality, you know that this is a $200 shirt and it's on sale in that thrift store for $20. You know that, hey, yes, this may be more expensive than the $2 other shirt there, but this one right here is well worth picking up because it's quality. You're able to spot it. You've understood that it's sometimes looking at the buttons, the quality of not just the way the stitching is done, but also are these horn buttons? Are those mother of pearl buttons? I also highly recommend you pick up a few coffee table books. These are going to be ones with nice pictures. When you have nothing else to do, you peruse through them. Yes, 20, 30, 40 bucks, but these books will serve you well because they will save you thousands of dollars over your lifetime as you start to understand the tiny details that separate good from great in menswear. Next up, let's talk about the importance of interchangeable clothing. These are items that are going to work with a wide variety of other items in your wardrobe. This is going to be a classic black or brown belt. Yes, a belt with a nice, interesting pattern in it may grab a little bit of attention, but the problem is it does grab attention. Therefore, it's going to be memorable. And one thing you want to take from this is that, hey, going with items like gray flannel trousers, dark denim, a gray sports jacket, a white dress shirt. These are timeless items. It looks nice if it fits you. It's going to complement your build. Overall, it's going to work with a lot of other items in your wardrobe, but it doesn't really stand out. And some people may say that's boring. I'm going to say that's what makes it interchangeable. The fact that it's almost like a blank canvas that you can draw on. And then you understand that really it's your small accessories. It's those other details like that you can bring in color, you can bring in patterns, and that's where you can have your fun. Next up, you want to be careful of the trap that high quality clothing means it comes from an expensive brand. Now, for somebody just starting to build their wardrobe, not familiar with menswear or clothing in general, they may be saying, well, isn't that counterintuitive? I mean, I've heard the saying, you get what you pay for. Not necessarily in clothing. A lot of times there is a huge markup in the clothing, and there's a lot of established brands that are resting on their laurels, or they're putting out disposable fashion, which the high markup, the high cost is actually related to the fact that it is new and it's out there quick, versus you will see that same item, within a year on a discount rack for 70 to 80% off. Now, if you've watched more than a few of my videos, you're probably wondering, Antonio, you haven't talked about fit. Fit is king, and you're exactly right. Guys, I've talked about the style pyramid where I talk about fit, function, and fabric. Anything that you buy, anything that you wear, you want to make sure fits you well. If you want to dress in a manner that you look like you have style, that you've got some funds behind you, then you want to make sure that your clothing fits. Now, believe it or not, getting clothing adjusted by a seamstress is relatively inexpensive for what it can do to the overall look, but I get it if some of you guys are on a super tight budget. Guys, learn to dart your shirt, to be able to hem your own trousers. It's relatively easy to do. Tons of tutorials. I've got a few here at Real Men Real Style, but right there you can take an average looking pair of trousers. All of a sudden you get rid of that diaper khaki butt. You slim it up on the leg line. All of a sudden that tapered look is much more stylish and timeless. A $2,000 suit that doesn't fit is going to look a lot worse than a $200 suit that's been adjusted to fit the man, because when clothing fits you, it's going to complement your body build. Overall, it's just going to make you look better. Next up, if you want to look rich on a budget, keep your clothing in good condition. And you can easily do this yourself by washing at home, by understanding the difference of how you should treat wool, how you should treat cotton, how you should treat linen. If you're going to wear a linen shirt, make sure that you iron it. And understand that linen shirts, within a few hours, most likely are going to start to wrinkle. So they're always going to be a bit more casual. If you're going to a dressier event, then wear a cotton shirt, which does a much better job of holding up and resisting wrinkling. If you have a wool jacket, understand you cannot run this through the wash. Wool sweaters, you want to be very careful the way that you're cleaning them. You're also going to want to make sure that you get rid of any pilling. This has to happen times in lower quality sweaters, or any sweater that has been run through a bit of rough treatment is worn in a way that all of a sudden the fabrics are going to be rubbing against each other. In addition, anything that's stained, anything that's torn, you want to get repaired if it can be, without actually showing the repair or making it look obvious. But I see so many guys wearing a white shirt that really is past its prime. It's starting to yellow. Now, there are ways to be able to treat this, to be able to bring the whiteness back, but if you can't do it, then it is something you're going to want to replace. The next rule to dressing rich on a budget is to buy timeless, not trendy. One thing I love about menswear is it doesn't change too much. You could buy a suit, you could buy a pair of boots, you can buy, a watch, and know that, hey, this thing, if I buy classic, it is going to be in style. If it was in style 20 years ago, most likely it will be in style again in 20 years. Now, the whimsical winds of fashion, that's where we're going to see the fit on the suits come in. We're going to see them now getting all loose and baggy like they were like 15 years ago. Point being is trends come in and out. And some people follow that. If you're a fashionista, go for it. What are you doing watching my videos? You should be making your own videos. But for the majority of us, especially if you're on a tight budget, you're going to want to buy a classic timeless item. Remember the first part we talked about, the priority? You want to identify where you've got a hole in your wardrobe. But if you notice, okay, I don't have many summer jackets, which are going to be unlined, lightweight material that's going to be breathable. At the same time, it dresses you up a bit. This may be a huge hole in your wardrobe. And you like to dress a little bit more professional. You're in law school, you want to be a consultant, you're transitioning into maybe more of an IT role, but management level. In this case, this would be a great item to add to your wardrobe. So you want to look at what would be a classic color, what would be a classic pattern. Okay, navy, a blazer right there. It's been around for what, like 70 years? Guess what? It's going to be around probably for another 70 years, the whole Lindy effect. So knowing that, you can actually spend a little bit more money there, and you know that that's a good investment because it's not going to go out of fashion. It's not going to go out of style, especially if you get the cut and fit in a timeless design. So now let's talk about particular items. Now I'm talking about the pieces of clothing that honestly you would get a big return on your investment if you don't have these in your wardrobe, because they are so versatile, because they are so timeless. They're going to be in style 20 to 30 years from now, and you can actually find these on sale or look around. You can find some really good deals because many companies sell them. So first up, the white dress shirt. Also, you'll see white button downs. There is a difference. A white button down is going to actually be more casual, usually made from a heavier, more casual fabric. White dress shirts are going to be made from poplin. Another big thing we're going to see in the design is dress shirts are going to have tails in the front or back. That means it's a little bit longer in the front and back, so they're made to be tucked in. And in general, if you're wearing a dress shirt, always tuck it in. A lot of guys, for some reason, don't have in their wardrobe. And can you wear it with dark jeans? Yes. Some people don't like the look, but I think if you throw a sports jacket over the top, the point being is white shirts in general have always been associated with the upper class. Why? Because if you're wearing a white shirt, it shows that you don't have to work with your hands. You're not worried about getting dirty. And the crisp contrast it provides with a dark jacket, even with dark denim, in a group of people that are all wearing dark colors, the white pops and it draws attention. Like I said, if you're looking for something a little bit more casual, maybe a button-down collar, maybe an Oxford with white, you're also going to see a few other variations, in pastels, which I think are perfectly fine. But if I were to go to another white shirt that I really think is underused, that's going to be the white polo. And of course, it's going to be more casual, shorter sleeve, but you can find this in a variety of different materials, different builds. But the white polo, especially with khaki shorts, is just a classic summer look, a little bit more sophisticated. The collar, brings that, extra level of style, but at the same time, it is very casual, made to be worn untucked in most situations. Polos like this, I think, are an easy step up from a t-shirt. Now, I know some of you guys are saying, well, white is boring. Okay, then look to blues. any variation of blue. You can go with a dark blue, you can go with a light blue. Blue is going to be the second color under white in terms of the mix and match. It works with so many different types of jackets, so many different types of trousers, especially brown, khaki, gray. That's why I love blue. And I know it sounds boring, but really look to change up the style. You could go with a mixture. You can go with a white shirt with a blue pattern on it, but really sticking with this right here and making sure that you've got all your bases covered with the different styles, the different patterns. If you're looking for a shirt that has a button down, that has a mix with the blue and the white, that's going to be a light blue Oxford. This right here, it's so easy to build your base of the wardrobe. And that's the key to having this, looking rich, is having your bases covered. It's not about having something that's really flashy and outlandish. It's about having something that's going to work with anything. That way you can spend the money to get a little bit better quality, maybe get adjusted to fit you, and that is going to be the difference that's going to make you look good. Next up, let's talk about chinos. And I'm not talking about khakis that are oversized. I'm talking about chinos that fit you well and that have been adjusted if necessary. So hemmed, slimmed up on the sides, ones that, especially during the summer, maybe even that you could roll up a little bit shorter. This is going to look so great with the shirts we just talked about, and you're going to be able to easily match this with a wide variety of other items in your wardrobe. Now, a lot of guys default to jeans as their go-to, and jeans are fine, and I'm not going to put them on this list because I've talked about them tons of times, but they are always going to be more casual. You could find some higher end, because let's say you start getting into chinos, then all of a sudden you look at tropical weight wool trousers. A lot of guys, again, default to navy. I'm going to say, hey, look at some of the lighter colors. Again, tans, browns. They're basically all on the same area of the color wheel, so they're going to work with the same type of shirts, they're going to work with the same type of jackets, they're going to work with the same type of shoes. And speaking of shoes, so first up, we want to step up from the running shoes. You've got the casual sneakers. Nothing wrong with those. If you want to go with a pair of clean white sneakers, that'll work. But why not step it up with a pair of loafers? Guys, tons of options when it comes to loafers. They're incredibly comfortable, slip on, slip off. You don't have to go with the dress shoe variety that are going to have more of a leather sole. You can go with some with a rubber sole, especially if you're going to be in a wetter environment. That being said, if you're going to be on a boat, you're going to be in a wet environment, look specifically for boat shoes. For some people, a little bit too preppy of a look. Some guys may even feel they're a bit dated. But again, if you're going to be on a boat, there is a reason they are called boat shoes, because they give you great traction on a deck. Now, if you're looking to dress it up a bit, go with classic Brogues in a medium brown, in a dark brown, even in a light brown. Brogues are amazing in terms of just being able to bring a bit of texture, to bring a bit of attention without having to bring in a whole lot of color. Next up, let's talk about odd jackets. And when I say odd jackets, I'm referring both to sports jackets and blazer jackets. An odd jacket is any jacket not made to go with a particular pair of trousers. So any jacket that's outside of a suit. And what I love about blazers is that they are relatively easy to dress up, to dress down, to match with a variety. Again, most of your trousers, let's say they're going to be in brown. You're going to have these wider blue shirts. So bringing on a dark blue blazer. If you want something a little bit more casual, you can find them in lighter colors. You can find them in a variety of different materials. If you're going to be going out to dinner and you want to take your style up to the next level, such an easy way to do it. Now, this next suggestion may push a few of you guys outside your comfort zone, and I'm not sure you can find this at a discount or on sale, especially this time of the year, but look to seersucker. So seersucker is where they take cotton, and the way it's woven, it's going to be incredibly breathable. It uses a three-dimensional weave and allows the air to move in and out. It was developed in the southern United States, and because it's made from cotton, initially it was actually, a very, very affordable. So you just see seersucker suits, you would see seersucker trousers. My son has a pair of seersucker shorts, which I think are absolutely great on him. Point being is seersucker has a casual overall feel to it, but incredibly breathable, yet it has this old money, this old, classic rich type of look to it. Some people hear old money, they think old-fashioned or outdated. And sometimes that's true, but more often than not, these are brands that are staying on the cutting edge. There's a reason that they've been around for, in some cases, hundreds of years. Example being the French company Hermes, founded in 1837. These guys started off just making horse harnesses. Yes, they were for nobles and they were very good quality, but that was their specialty for a number of years until they decided to branch off. So in 1880, I think it was Charles took over for his father, Thierry, and basically took him in a different direction. He started selling retail. He actually moved the factory to the location it's at today, and he started to expand the business. By 1910, the grandsons had taken over. They were selling a lot of the saddles and bridles and stuff over to Russia. From the 1920s on, they jumped into clothing and they've never looked back. But when you look at their logo, what do you see? You see the foundation, you see where these guys came from. Nowadays though, especially if you're a man, if you're going in to buy an Hermes, yeah, you could pick up a bag, but most often you're grabbing one of their well-known neckties, maybe one of their scarves, or perhaps their classic leather belt with an H buckle, which if you know the history now, you understand that these guys have been doing leather and they've been doing it well for almost 200 years. Now, if you ever get the chance to go to London and you're a menswear enthusiast, you owe it to yourself to stop by Savile Row. Besides being a great looking street, it is also home to some of the best tailors and seamstresses on the planet. Now, if you're familiar with the first Kingsman movie, you'll probably remember that part. They went into that tailor shop. Now, parts of that were real. The outside entrance, this is an actual tailor shop on Savile Row. Anyone know what it is? Let me know in the comments below. But when you walk down the street, not only are you going to see that one, but you've got Henry Poole. You've also got at one Savile Row, one of the oldest tailors on the row, Jeeves and Hawkes. Founded in 1771, Jeeves and Hawkes has served royalty. They've served the military. They've just served gentlemen throughout the UK whenever they want to look their best. Let's go over to the shoe area. So let's start with John Lobb, a company founded in 1849. So yeah, relatively, new, not even 200 years old. These guys have been making custom shoes and they've got tons of lasts. These guys focused in on footwear. And what's great is once they've got your last, once they've got a shape of what your foot is like, they can make for you any type of shoe. So the next company was founded in 1850 in Newark, New Jersey. The company I'm talking about here started off as a simple shoe company and now has grown into, I think, one of the best options if you're looking for affordable classic menswear and you happen to be in an airport. I think they got some of the best stores right in airports around the United States. Who am I talking about? Johnson and Murphy. Now, to this day, Johnson & Murphy is still known for their shoes. And I think they've done a really good job, not just with the classic shoes, but actually bringing in a mix of that classic looking shoe mixed in with the sneaker. That being said, in recent years, they've done a good job expanding into other pieces of men's clothing. In fact, if you're looking for some good jackets, don't sleep on Johnson & Murphy. I go in there and I'm always amazed at great jackets I can find. Now, the fit, I think, it leaves a little bit to be desired. So you got to make sure that it actually fits your body type. That being said, you can get things adjusted, especially sports jacket, suit jackets, but their shoes are still where it's at. And of course, anyone that makes good shoes oftentimes makes good accessories. So belts and other things like that they do a good job with as well. Now, jumping back over to outerwear, let's talk about Burberry. 1856 is when this company was founded. And the number one garment that Burberry became known the world over for is the trench coat. Nowadays, the trench coat isn't as popular as it used to be, but starting in the late 1880s, 1890s, they were initially made for the military. Those serving over in the Boer War, they found them very useful. They were custom made and they expanded this out. So going into World War I, it was initially an officer's coat. Eventually, even the enlisted men were asking for these things. Nowadays, Burberry is known for their high quality jackets. They sell a lot more than just trenches, but still a key identifier of a Burberry jacket, besides the logo, besides the brand name, is going to be that Nova check design. This is a very distinctive tartan pattern that really adds a bit of color whenever you flash and you can see the inside of the coat. Now, what if you want an outdoor coat that's functional for hunting? You want something that, is going to have a cotton, but a waxed cotton? Check out Barbour. Founded in 1894, what I love about Barbour is just how strong, masculine. These are great looking jackets. They're going to be a little bit pricey, not as pricey as you would think though. And these guys have remained true for well over 100 years to what they're about. These are functional outdoor coats, and that's really been their outerwear. They've got a wide range of other pieces of clothing and accessories and stuff like that. But I have to say it's still their jackets, it's their outerwear, it's their outside work gear, not really work, more for hunt and sport. What if you want something that's warm, a bit more delicate, a bit more clean in the style, in the lines? Check out Loro Piana. 1924, these guys founded over in Italy. Yes, not all the old money brands are going to be coming out of the UK or France, but what I love about Loro Piana is going to be their knitwear. If you're looking for a higher end sweater, if you're looking for a classic design, if you're looking for something that is going to just feel, just cashmere, just absolutely beautiful, at the same time fit close to the body and be timeless in style, Loro Piana, it's hard to beat. Now, what if you want an Italian suit? Then look no farther than Zegna. Yes, there are tons of other great brands that I would recommend. They got some of the best fabrics out there, especially if you want something soft, breathable when it comes to the style. Second to none. They are going to be pricey. If you want a sports jacket, if you want a blazer, blazer that is, yeah, just absolutely beautiful. The craftsmanship, the detail, this is Italian elegance at its finest. Let's talk about the American classic Brooks Brothers, founded actually in 1818. So it's the oldest company in the United States. And Brooks Brothers didn't start out by making its own clothing. They were simply reselling other clothing that they were getting from around the world, mostly from the UK or a few manufacturers in the United States. What I love about this company is now there are just certain pieces that are iconic to Brooks Brothers. One of them is the sack suit. And this was really the first mass manufactured jacket suit that was made for people to be able to throw on. In addition, Brooks Brothers is known for the button-down collar. Of course, there are other companies that picked up on this, but the button-down Oxford, the button-down collar that we would see on a lot of shirts and polos included, this was started apparently with Brooks Brothers. Now, what about a modern old money brand? Well, we got Ralph Lauren, so 1967, relatively younger than all the other brands we've talked about today. But when it comes to having made a splash, especially in the United States and on the world, it's hard to find a brand that really has done more. Being able to give the masses the feeling of this old money preppy style and making it popular, that's the gift that they were able to give. Chinos, blazers, shorts, all the different shirts that you need for that preppy look. You know, I would say that Ralph Lauren didn't write the preppy handbook, but he pretty much perfected it and supplied everything that people were looking for after they read that book. And it seems like everyone on the East Coast, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s especially, they were wearing his clothing. But if you want something a little bit more modern, something that actually is a relatively new company, founded in 2009, MJ Bale. Now, as I was over on their website, one of the things I really liked is their look on linen shirts. And linen shirts are classic. Go over on their website. Yes, they've got great looking suits. They've got some really nice sweaters. And they've even got some sharp looking trench coats over there. And let's not forget Politics, founded in Australia in 1975. These guys started off as a boutique leather jacket maker. Now they've really gone into the fashion side. And I'm not going to say I love everything over on their website, but I do like seeing, you know, a brand that was founded in Australia. If you are Australian, if you've got Australian heritage, or you just simply enjoy, you know, the culture and that country, check them out. Oh, and I almost forgot the Kiwis. Guys, let's jump over to New Zealand and let's look at Rod and Gun, founded in 1946. Now, if you know anything about New Zealand, you know that these people have a lot of sheep in that country. So this is reflected and it makes a lot of sense. They're going to be having some great wool sweaters over at Rod and Gun. That being said, they're also known for their dress shirts and their polo shirts. They use a really nice cotton. And I do like how they stick with a lot of classic styles. So even their sports jackets, their trousers, everything over on that website, actually, it really suits my style. The more I learn about this company, the more I love what they're doing. Now, this next brand was established in 1980. And what I really like about them is they didn't try to put an ostentatious logo right in your face. They keep it really muted, really just understated, and they have good quality for what you pay for. The brand I'm talking about is Muji. Minimalist design, and like I said, no logos. What I love about Muji, if you go over to their website, you're going to have some great t-shirts. If you're looking for a linen blended shirt, and if you want a wool blended cardigan, these guys got you covered. And if you've never bought clothing from Japan, understand that the sizing is going to be a little bit smaller. This next Japanese brand has been around since 1946. Now, they've got their hands in tons of other things, electronics and stuff, but watches are what we're going to talk about today. And of course, the brand we're talking about is Casio. The Casio G-Shock. This is the sportsman watch. Yes, all these other watches may claim that they went to the moon, they go underwater, all this other stuff, but here's the thing, is the G-Shock just gets the job done. They're tough, they're functional, and in my opinion, they are timeless. The next two brands on this list consistently produce high quality products. You could argue that the product they put out today is easily in the top 5% in their industry. They both also have cult followings where vintage pieces are sold for more than what the original ever cost. I tell you all this because I don't think most people, especially Westerners, are going to say that these companies are old money. But it depends on how you look at it, because I think over in Japan, there are a lot of people that prefer this brand over inferior Western products that are just, in their opinion, overpriced. The brands I'm referring to, gentlemen, are Seiko and Orient. First up, Seiko, founded in 1881 by Kintaro Hattori. For the first 11 years of his business, he focused in on jewelry. And it wasn't until 1892 that he started to sell watches. In fact, it wasn't until 1924 that Seiko started to produce its own watches under its name. But it was post-World War II, specifically the 1960s, when things started getting interesting. First up, they wanted to compete with the Swiss. They traveled over to Switzerland and started competing in the competitions and actually came very close to beating and winning the Swiss till the Swiss decide, you know what, we're just going to end that contest. So how'd they react? Well, they didn't say anything publicly. They just came back to Japan and they created in 1969 the world's first quartz watch. Since then, Seiko has continued to lead and innovate. In fact, when we look at the particular models like the Prospex, Presage, the Seiko 5 series, and one of my recent favorites, Grand Seiko, we can see that this company has taken the philosophy of be so good they can't ignore you to, maybe an extreme. Now, Orient, on the other hand, has only been around since 1950, but what I love about this company is their commitment to in-house manufacturing of their movement. Since the beginning, these guys have been focused in on quality and authenticity, and their designs are absolutely beautiful. In fact, a lot of people knock Seiko for the design. Orient comes in and just cleans house here. This beautiful watch right here, the Bambino. Just look at this thing. This is a beautiful dress watch. And I have to say their dive watches, what I love about these is there's just something a little bit more fun. It's the details. They just look a little bit nicer, I think, than the Seikos. And even some of my higher end tool watches, even from Rolex. Right here, just the accents, the colors, the mixing in. And you've got the Ray 2, the Mako 2, and I think they've even come out with later versions, but these are absolutely beautiful watches. All right, so enough about watch brands. Now, this next clothing brand has only been around since 1983, but when you look at the aesthetic, you're gonna find, you know what, this is like Brooks Brothers, except more modern, and I have to say, recently, probably even better. Seriously, despite being relatively new, they really give off an old money type of vibe, and they do this by, taking what could be on the runway, but they make it practical, they make it applicable. I mean, this is stuff that you can wear to work. At the same time, you are never going to be out of fashion because they stay up on that stuff pretty well. And when it comes to the key staple items I would be grabbing from this company, that's going to be cashmere sweaters. They've got a great selection of classic chinos, tailored suits, and their classic Ludlow dress shirts. If you haven't figured it out, the company I'm talking about is J. Crew. And let's talk about the Ludlow suit. Introduced in 2008, this suit was viewed at the time as maintaining a classic silhouette, yet a modern overall feel. And for so many young men out there that were entering the workforce but wanted something affordable, J. Crew was able to to be able to make sure that they could fill the closet and be able to show up to work well dressed. Now, this next brand just turned 100 years old, founded in 1920 in Seattle, Washington. Even before I got into fashion, I picked up a number of pieces from this brand because they were functional, such as their outerwear, which is weather resistant, still has a really nice rugged look to it. They've also got a great selection of boots, although their quality maybe has gone down over the last couple decades. I'd have to say still they're decent. Now, for a lot of people though, it's going to be their signature cotton sweaters that set them apart. Cotton is nice because you can throw it in the wash and it's relatively durable and not super hot. So a great sweater when you've got that in between. You don't want to wear wool, but on the other hand, you need something to be able to provide just a bit of insulation. The company I'm talking about, gentlemen, is Eddie Bauer. Now, a little known fact about Eddie Bauer is they were originally known for inventing and patenting the first quilted down jacket in the US. When you go over to their website, you're going to see they've got a full line of different menswear pieces. Again, not everything here is going to be old money, but if you know what you're looking for, it's relatively easy to find. Now, speaking of knowing what you're looking for, this next brand, I was in one of their stores, a flagship store in Tokyo, and I got lost. Literally, it was 8 stories of clothing, but I loved it because as I was just going through this, I'm like, man, I understand why these guys have become so popular. Why since 1949, these guys have been making a mark in the fashion and style world. Let me correct myself. It actually was in 1984 that they opened their first store. Before that, they were a textile manufacturer, and that store in Hiroshima was called Unique Clothing Warehouse. The brand I'm talking about is Japan's Uniqlo. Gents, if you're looking for a classic cotton t-shirt, you want a good-looking, affordable cashmere sweater that doesn't have any crazy patterns on it and is just going to be in a solid color, easy to match, easy to dress up, dress down. You want some selvage denim that's not going to break the bank, or you want a lightweight down jacket that looks good and is going to be able to serve you. You're going to be able to pack up and really, again, doesn't have any big logos on it. Gents, if that's what you're looking for, you don't need to go any farther than your nearest Uniqlo store. For our next brand, let's head over to Canada. 1985, this company was founded and was acquired actually in 1999 by Ralph Lauren. That being said, even since the acquisition, it's done a pretty good job of maintaining its high quality standards and its sleek styles. And that's what I like about this brand. They've got the classic styles, but they still add a little bit of a modern element to it. And their cuts and fits are usually on point. If you're looking for a chambray shirt, check them out. If you're looking for a jumper, if you're looking for a cashmere sweater, if you're looking for a more modern, edgy combination with a sports jacket and hoodie, then check them out. And I'm talking about Club Monaco. They've also got a solid collection of knit shirts, but in general, the colors that you see here are going to be mostly muted. They're going to be easy to mix, match, and if you're looking for foundational pieces to a classic man's wardrobe, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better deal than what you're going to find at Club Monaco. This next old money brand isn't even 40 years old. Founded in 1985, the idea and the vision for this brand was to redefine American cool, to be able to bring it into the clothing and to capture the masses' hearts by putting out pieces that were, embodied by rock stars at the same time, were approachable and were just classic in their design. And with their red, white, and blue logo that actually isn't too much in your face, these guys definitely are 100% American. Who am I talking about? Gentlemen, Tommy Hilfiger. Now, some of you guys can argue that their quality has gone down in the last 20 years. I'm not going to, I think if you go in there and you know what you're looking for, you can still find some great deals, especially when they do have sales. But if you're looking at polos, if you're looking at the basics, we're talking underwear, undershirts, if you're just looking for a good pair of chinos. And their sweatshirts are always classic. Again, try to avoid the big logo, but I do like the overall look, and the brand has actually been having a resurgence. So go in there, check them out. If it's been a while, a lot of people associate them with the 1990s. I think that they're making a comeback, and they look pretty good. Now, this next old money brand was founded in 1963 out of Chicago by a gentleman named Gary Comer. The company was originally a yachting supply company, and they did happen to make some clothing, but over the years they realized, hey, our clothing is selling a lot better and it's a much bigger market, so let's move over there. That being said, they've always paid attention to the quality of the materials of the fabrics and the build. And to this day, they've got some great items that if you're looking to be able to go out, you're going to be on a boat, or you're just simply going to be walking the streets of Los Angeles when it's windy with the rain you guys have been getting, or again, you just simply want something that's quality made, look no further than Land's End. Now, the clothing to check out at the Land's End are going to be their jackets, in particular the Squall jacket. This one has been around for a long time and they're very famous for it. But if you just want to pick up a pair of Chino shorts, a pair of jeans, or a polo shirt, you're going to find that Land's End has good quality here. Now let's head over to Germany. And the company we're about to talk about was founded almost 100 years ago in 1924. Now, the first 20 to 30 years, they've got a little bit of an interesting history. If you want to go do a little bit of research on them, let's just say fascism in Europe. But by the 1950s, the 1960s, they were retooling themselves and they really started getting into the growing European fashion market. So in the 1980s, they made a splash. All of a sudden, everyone's talking about them. Guys, I'm talking about Hugo Boss. Now, the classic items from Hugo Boss are going to be those crisp dress shirts, are going to be the tailored suits. And they've also got a good collection of fragrances. That being said, Hugo Boss is on this list because they do maintain the timeless elegance. Sometimes they fall into fashion trends, but overall you can go in here and you can dress well at an affordable price. Now, this next brand, some of you guys may not consider an old money brand, but they're one of the oldest on this list. Founded in Oregon in 1863, this company has continued to focus in on woolen clothing. For many in the fashion know, they embody the American West. The company I'm talking about is Pendleton. So first up, their wool shirts. These shirts have been worn by cowboys. They've been worn by Hollywood stars. They've been worn by people in the East Coast that just simply want a different look. They definitely have a unique style, but that's what everyone loves about them, and the fact that they are incredibly functional. These woolen shirts are going to keep you warm. They're going to be able to deal with the drizzle. They are going to be able to, they're just incredibly functional and a classic piece that when you buy it, it's going to last you a lifetime. Pendleton is a unique brand that you definitely, if you've never heard of them, you want to go check them out. Next company in this list was founded in 1912 in the city of Freeport, Maine. Now, the founder had an interesting first name, middle name combination, Leon Leonwood. Seriously, who names their kid this? Especially with the last name Bean. Well, thankfully for us, he decided to shorten it. He went with LL Bean, which is much catchier. And nowadays, if you go into that store, tons of great items that are going to give an old money vibe that you can find at an affordable price. Seriously, when it comes to flannel shirts, LL Bean is hard to beat. If you go into one of their stores, I was one at the Mall of America, man, it was just tons of flannel everywhere. Their fisherman sweaters, also really nice and coming out of Maine, pretty darn authentic. But the one item that put them on the map is so ugly, but so functional, is their duck boot. Now, straight up, from a functional perspective, this thing gets the job done, hence why so many people, especially on the East Coast, where you get the rain, you get the sleet, you get the snow, just absolutely love these things. This is definitely hunter gear, hence when it started and where it comes from. But it was adopted by people that just simply wanted to be able to keep their feet warm. It became a fashion icon, trended up and down, and still to this day, it is now an iconic piece from the LL Bean Company. Now, gents, I know I skipped over a lot of brands in today's video. If you want to see more, let me know in the comments below and I'll make a part 2. That being said, there's a similar trend called quiet luxury, which on the surface seems to be about the same thing. However, it is not. A key characteristic of old money style is it's going to rely heavily on classic, timeless pieces that signify old school wealth that's been in the family for generations. Now, quiet luxury, on the other hand, doesn't seem to imply generational wealth. In fact, in many people's minds, the only reason the trend exists is because of the show Succession and how the words have been trending on TikTok. However, if you define quiet luxury as unique, personalized, and exceptionally refined garments that are oftentimes commissioned in small batches and made bespoke by craftsmen? Well, by that definition, this trend has been going on since the Middle Ages. Seriously, go back to the Renaissance and you'll see oftentimes the difference between those that were higher up in society and those that were lower weren't the colors or the styles, but the materials being used and the detail of the craftsmanship and the build quality. This would result in two garments that looked incredibly similar, but were priced different by a multiple of 100. So what exactly is quiet luxury? How is it different from old money? And what are the brands that fit into each of the categories? Guys, I'm going to cover all that in today's video. When I think of quiet luxury, I define it with 5 key characteristics. First up, quiet luxury is going to be modern and minimalistic. Now, when I say modern, I'm not talking fashion forward, but it is going to be fashionable. So it's going to have clean lines, simple silhouettes, and the aesthetic overall is going to be more contemporary. Quiet luxury is going to fit into the time period, while old money style at times can seem a bit outdated and that it's slowly catching up. That being said, both old money and quiet luxury are going to be using high quality designs. They're going to be using high quality materials. But because quiet luxury is going to be a little bit more cutting edge, you're going to find the prices can be a lot more than old money. The next key characteristic of quiet luxury is discreet branding. It goes with the name. This is quiet. It's not screaming. I mean, seriously, to the untrained eye, they may just see, oh, that's a shirt. Looks like it came from Target, but it actually came from a high-end designer brand out of Italy. And again, cost 100 times more than that shirt from Target. And I know at this point, some of you guys are saying, well, why in the world would anyone pay that much money for something that honestly doesn't matter? It's a great question. And to answer that question, let's go to the field of enclothed cognition. It talks about how when you wear certain items, you feel differently. You perform differently. It's one of those things that the people who know, and they spot it, and it sends a very quiet signal that, hey, this person has very high status, or they've at least got the money to buy that stuff. And I know most of you guys watching would never fall for this because you're too smart, too logical, but most human beings are very emotional, and these small signals and positioning of status has a huge effect. The next thing about quiet luxury is it's versatile, it's functional. When we go back and we look at history of quiet luxury, these were pieces of clothing that needed to be able to perform. They're going to get wet. They need to be able to protect the wearer. This is daily wear. Which again, for a lot of people, when they see the cost of some of this quiet luxury items, they're like, hey, isn't that like dress clothing? The amount that you spent on those sneakers, I would usually spend for a high-end pair of dress shoes. Well, again, being able to wear this day to day, it is a status symbol. It's a message that people are putting out there of who they are and what they've got. Next up with quiet luxury, let's talk about technological innovation. And even going back centuries, we would see that these very simple items were using sometimes cutting edge fabrics, materials, but more often we'll see technology. We'll see things woven into the clothing that all of a sudden gives it unique properties. It makes it something that's functional for the wearer. Next up, let's talk about sustainability and ethical manufacturing. 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, this wouldn't have been on the list. This is something that's trending, and now it's very important for a lot of these higher end companies to be able to show that they are ethical, where everything's being manufactured, that they're not using, certain types of labor, that they're not testing on animals. Does it really make a difference? I think that's debatable, but it is something that is trending and is important right now. So what about with old money? What are the characteristics? First up, let's talk about heritage. As mentioned earlier, it's about tradition. It's about, okay, your dad went to this tailor, your grandfather wore this type of clothing. It's about looking good. It's about understanding, especially in men's style, that things don't change that quickly. And that's great because you can spend a good amount of money on your wardrobe and you can rest assured that it's going to look good. It's not going to go out of style. Old money style is often about fitting in and looking the part. Now, right with that, we've got conservative choices. Now, conservative choices are just going to be safe choices. So we're going to avoid the whimsical winds of fashion when you're dressing old money. You're going to wear items that have, as I talked about the Lindy effect. If it's been around for 100 years and people are still wearing it, guess what? This is going to be an item then that's probably in the old money wardrobe. So you're going to see classic light colored dress shirts. You're going to see sports jackets. You're going to see blazers. You're going to see a variety of loafers and dress shoes. And then that takes us to subdued elegance. This is going to be about the color choices, the fabric choices, the combinations of such. In an old money wardrobe, the colors are going to be muted. In fact, the colors navy, gray, beige, black, white, and blue for shirts, along with earth tones, are going to dominate the majority of the wardrobe. Gents, if you want to step up your style efficiently and effectively, look for a proven path. A curriculum that saves you from confusion, from bad information, from crappy teachers. You want to make sure that you're not just learning facts, but you actually are being shown concepts. Lessons that give you foundations. They give you the fundamentals to be able to dress sharp in any situation. It's also great if you can surround yourself with like-minded men, because how many times have you tried to learn something and there are other people that don't want to be there, they're distracting you, or worse, they're tempting you to go do something else. Now, a trend may eventually make its way in after 50, 60 years. Seriously, it's just something, old money style, like these guys are just starting to wear jeans after 80 to 90 years. But it makes sense because it's all about quality over trends. Why? Because they want to be able to invest in things that last. They want to be able to have a uniform that simply works. They don't want to fall into a trap. In fact, you could view it like, hey, they're letting the masses test out all these new trends, all these different types of clothing. And if it doesn't mess them up, then they'll eventually add it to theirs. And last but not least, let's talk about understated elegance. This is perhaps one of my favorite parts about the old money wardrobe. Understated elegance is when you choose something that's been made very well and you take care of it and you use it for years. And I think you can see this in shoes. You can see this in luggage and bags. If you've got a Rolex or, that's been passed down through 3 to 4 generations, a watch like that with stories, heritage, tradition would be sought after and well accepted. And in fact, would be looked at something better than going out and buying a modern Rolex. All right, Jen. So now let's talk about brands. Old money versus quiet luxury. And some of you guys may disagree with the way I classify some of these brands. If you disagree, let me know in the comments below. But let's see how many of these you can guess, you can get right. If you get all of them right, let me know, reach out to me, or let me know in the comments and brag about it. First up is Issey Miyake. Has anyone ever heard of this brand? Are you familiar with it? If you know Japanese style, you've heard of it. If you know fragrances, you've heard of this brand. I am going to put this brand in quiet luxury. Here's why. For me, Issey Miyake is about lines. It's about clean silhouettes. It's also not afraid to put a bit of technology into its products, its clothing, and for that reason, I view this as quiet luxury, and their prices can be very high. Next up, we've got Tom Ford. Now, where are you going to put this one? I think a lot of you guys know quiet luxury. And Tom Ford, again, you look at the name of some of his fragrances. If you look at some of the designs, you may not feel that's super quiet, but overall, he uses really good quality ingredients, quality fabrics. His designs, I think, they just ooze sexuality. They're definitely modern, but they're clean and classic. I got to put Tom Ford in quiet luxury. Next up, we got Brooks Brothers. All right, that one was easy, right? Come on. This is going to be definitely old school Americana. This is America's classic tailoring company. They're the ones that pushed the sack suit and they preppy clothing. Tons of people used to go for this, especially over on the East Coast. This is definitely old money style. Next up, we've got Gucci. Now, this one is tough. If you know Gucci, they've got modern, fashionable pieces that are anything but quiet. On the other hand, are they timeless? I think that they definitely have a lot of timeless lines. They've got some classic pieces. If you're Italian and, there are just certain things like the tassel bit loafer right there. I got to put it, I'm going to go with old school money. Yeah. Disagree? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, because of just certain pieces that they pioneered, I got to go old money. Next up, we got Brunello Cucinelli. Anyone familiar with this brand? I'll bring up a few images right here. Definitely, they're going to be cutting edge, very clean lines. But if you look at their prices for what you're getting, I mean, yeah, it's almost sticker shock for a lot of people. This is definitely going to be a quiet luxury brand. Now, what about the common projects? A lot of you guys know their sneakers. Very minimalist, very simple. What do you think? Is this going to be old money? No, it's not old money. This is going to be quiet luxury right there. Let's bring up another American company. We've got Allen Edmonds. So I personally love shopping at Allen Edmonds. Whenever I'm in an airport, they usually have some pretty good airport shops. And they've got started off, I think, shoes were their primary thing, but they've moved to a variety of different products out there. But what do you guys think? Allen Edmonds, where we're going to put them? Wisconsin brand. Yeah, they're going to be old money and great shoes. If you've never checked out Allen Edmonds, they've been around forever. And speaking of shoes, let's talk about Chino. Have any of you guys heard of this company? I remember I was over in London, picked up a pair, really liked them. I could also bring in Churches. Both of these companies, where were they going to fit? Okay, you're right. Old money, both of these brands. And if you feel those brands are cheap, you want to go higher upstream, definitely check out Crockett and Jones. I don't think Chino or Churches are cheap brands, but if you really want to spend the money, Crockett and Jones, and they are going to be old money, in my opinion. Let's get some casual clothing in here. Rag and Bone. Well, if you're selling casual clothing, but even, James Bond wears some of this stuff here, definitely not old money. Come on, this one was easy. So quiet luxury right here, Rag and Bone. Now, this next one is going to be a surprise for some of you guys, Arc'teryx. I like their clothing, but let's just say, especially the Arc'teryx, everyone ever shopped in one of those stores? This stuff is not cheap. You can get, I think, very functional clothing. It's a fraction of the cost here, but these right here, in my opinion, are definitely quiet luxury. Casual. Next up, Belstaff. This is a great British store. If you've never been in there, if you're walking through, and that probably gave it away. It seems like most British stores are going to be old money. So yes, Belstaff. And I know I could have put Barbour right here, but that one would have been way too easy, right, guys? Come on. Barbour, definitely old money. So the first fragrance on this list is relatively new, having been released in 2017. That being said, it's got old money credentials because it's based off a fragrance released in 1966 that transformed the men's cologne world. Now, that 1966 release is Dior's Eau Sauvage, not to be confused with the modern Sauvage line. No, the Eau Sauvage line became legendary because of the introduction and mix of citrus with lavender with a nice clean woody base. Considered a masterpiece fragrance, this was a staple worn by the rich and famous. Seriously, tons of well-to-do men considered this their signature scent. All that being said, the fragrance I'm going to recommend is the Eau Sauvage Flanker that came out in 2017, Parfum. Now, as you can see here, I've made a dent in this bottle. I love this. The accords are perfect for summer. We've got citrus, aromatic, a fresh, spicy, woody, lavender accords with a bit of earthy notes. Elegant, modern, fresh, versatile. This is a signature-worthy scent that definitely screams old money. So the next old money fragrance on this list is from the House of Chanel. And no, it's not going to be Bleu de Chanel, the EDT, the EDP, the Parfum, all of them amazing fragrances, but a bit overused. And it's not going to be Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme or anything in the Allure line, which is a fine line. Maybe the original is a bit dated, but no, to be honest, I could have probably put any fragrance from the Chanel men's line on this list and you guys would have been fine with it because I'll just say it straight up. Chanel doesn't make a bad fragrance. Well, gentlemen, I'm going back to Chanel's 1990 release, Egoist. This is a unique, beautiful, absolute masterpiece. If you want a velvety, woody, spicy floral blend, this is the fragrance you've been looking for. It's timeless, unique, sophisticated, and it's got good longevity. I also think that if you're a younger guy in your 20s or 30s, this is one of the classic fragrances you can easily pull off and stand out from the crowd. Now, if someone were to ask me, what are the notes I expect in an old money type of fragrance, something classic, I would give you 7 notes. The first one being citrus. This includes notes like bergamot, lemon, grapefruit. These are going to be invigorating. These are going to be fresh. They just give a feeling of cleanliness. So along that line, I'm going to be recommending 2 fragrances that at the top have a very nice citrus note. They've been out for a while, so you can even find these at discounters. Check out Dunhill Icon or John Varvados's Artisan Pure. Now, both of these fragrances are solid summer scents, and as a bonus, both of them come in really cool, unique bottles. They also both have good longevity, which isn't the case for all citrus scents. And in my personal opinion, each of these are really safe fragrances if you're looking for a blind buy. Now, if you want something that you can pick up in stores, let's say you're at Sephora, you're at Ulta, definitely check out Dolce & Gabbana's light blue line, specifically Italian Love. It's got a really strong, realistic grapefruit opening. It can be harsh for some, but again, you can try this out. You can smell it. I think it really cools down. It's a beautiful fragrance and it's relatively affordable. And since we're here talking about the Dolce & Gabbana line, I'm going to go ahead and throw in the One. This is a very popular selling fragrance for a reason. This thing is just, it exudes class. It's going to be more for cooler months. And when we look at the accords, that makes sense. This is a warm, spicy, amber, tobacco, aromatic, citrus, sweet, woody fragrance. So naturally, a darker, heavier fragrance like this is going to be suited to cold weather. That being said, the spice and wood can also make this an old money fragrance. And that takes me to the next two notes we see in a lot of old money fragrances: woods and spices. Now, when we're talking about woody fragrances, we're talking about cedar, sandalwoods, pines, and even vetiver. I know it's a grass, but technically in the fragrance world, it's oftentimes clumped in with woods. The thing with wood notes is they often give a feeling of warmth and depth, often associated with elegance. Now, the two fragrances I'm holding right here, Tom Ford's Tobacco Oud. A lot of people are going to feel this is pushing the edge. I still think this could be an old money fragrance. It's classic. It's been around for a while. They've written songs about this stuff. I really enjoy this one. But if this one's too much for you, check out one of Burberry's newest releases. That's going to be the Hero Eau de Parfum. Now, the EDT is decent, but I think the Eau de Parfum is even better, and it's got some really smooth, woody notes at the base, and that's what makes this such a universal, old money fragrance that doesn't cost a whole lot. Now, with spicy notes in old money, I feel it's a little bit trickier. So over the last 100 years, they have definitely popped up in classic men's fragrances. And for a lot of people, they do send a signal of robustness and strength, but you got to be careful of fragrances that overuse pepper, that overuse cardamom, that use a bit too much cinnamon, because it can be overpowering. So would I recommend Spice Bomb Extreme as an old money fragrance? Maybe. This is definitely pushing the envelope. But if you want a spicy fragrance that's more wearable during the summer and something that flies under the radar, check out F by Ferragamo. Overall, this is a fresh, spicy, lavender, amber, fruity, leather, aromatic green fragrance that's been around since 2007 and is a really fresh, clean, with a pepper note. You don't usually get that combination, and that's why I really like this spicy fragrance. And of course, it's got the woods at the base as well. The next set of notes we're going to talk about, often associated with a gentleman, green notes, herbaceous notes. These notes include lavender, rosemary, and clary sage. Right off the top, two fragrances that fit this description that are very different from each other. We've got Creed, Green Irish Tweed, and we have Polo, Green. So with Green Irish Tweed, it's been described as an invigorating blast of fresh, clean green. Stunning, masculine, creates a feeling of well-being. Despite being out since 1985, this fragrance does not smell dated and is one of the best old money fragrances on this list. But not to be outdone, we've got Polo Green, released in 1978. If you smell this, you will say, yes, I've smelled this before. Easily one of the best-selling fragrances for men of all time. And a relatively complex fragrance at that. More of a fall and winter fragrance. I know guys that wear this year-round. It is their go-to scent. Actually, a lot of guys. And that's what you're going to notice. It's distinctive. It is definitely a classic, been around, and has that old money smell to it. That being said, if those are too common for you, two lesser known options, Tom Ford's Beau de Jour, released in 2020. What I love about this is a modern old money scent that in the Tom Ford line, for some reason, a lot of guys look over. Floris 89, on the other hand, this fragrance is probably one of the oldest ones I'm talking about today. Classic, timeless, and popular with those that read in Fleming. Floris 89 is, a fragrance that has been around, but nobody seems to know about, unless you're a James Bond fan. And at this point, I just realized that I skipped over vetiver fragrances. When it comes to old money, green, wood, vetiver, however you classify this, this is a classic scent for hundreds of years, probably even longer. Men have been adorning themselves with the smell of vetiver. And there's various types out there, various options when it comes to fragrances. Two of the best. You've got perhaps the smoothest vetiver out there in Creed's original vetiver. But if you want something that's affordable and comes from a classic French house, check out Guerlain's vetiver or even the extreme vetiver. And they smell the same, just the extreme vetiver is going to last a bit longer. And that takes us to earthy notes. We got the vetiver, but also oak moss. And oak moss was a staple in men's fragrances for a long time because it helped the fragrance project and last longer. But it also led to men's fragrances being associated with this earthy type of smell. Now, two of the more popular earthy fragrances out there are going to be Hermes's H24 Eau de Parfum. This one just came out. Not my cup of tea, a little bit too much oak moss. If you want a little bit less oak moss, check out the EDT, which has more of a metallic smell. I really like this one more than the EDP, but I am bringing up the EDP because it has that really oak moss. They're clear that this is one of the dominant notes. The other one that you want to check out, and this one has more of an earthy vibe to it, almost smells like dirt. Yes, that is going to be Terra Essence by Bulgari. Again, it's an acquired taste. It's not for everybody, but it definitely has a beautiful old money smell if that's your type of thing. Now, if you want an earthy fragrance that's a little bit more mainstream, very wearable, check out Gucci Guilty Absolute Pour Homme. This one flies under the radar. Compared to the other flankers, everyone's like, what was this? This was a beautiful, earthy, old school type of fragrance, and probably the most popular when it comes to earthy fragrances that will get you compliments, even with that dirty orange smell, is going to be Terre de Mes by Hermes. This is their flagship fragrance and a masterpiece. Now, really quick, a few fragrances I did not want to leave off this list. We got Penhaligon's Sartorial. If you are dressing up, you're wearing black tie, you're in London, this is the fragrance for you. Next up, you want to be more attractive. You want to draw in the ladies. You want that old school money vibe that's going to draw in the women. Guys, check out Angel Share's Killian. So sweeter fragrances that smell like vanilla, I didn't really put on this list because traditionally they're not old money, but this one is an exception. It's got that smoky inside. This one is absolutely beautiful. And if you just want something fresh to be able to wear to the beach that literally you could spray on multiple times, not overpower anyone, and just smell amazing, check out Prada's L'Homme Water Splash. Oh, and because you guys are always giving me crap about not talking about niche fragrances, let's talk about Knott & Wilson's Chypre Fulminaire. Now, this is a citrus, woody, amber, yellow floral, sweet, fresh, spicy, smoky, aromatic fragrance with a bit of leather and those earthy notes. Now, if you love old school classic men's fragrances, I'm talking fragrance like Aramis and the classic Tom Ford Dior and even Chanel's Antaeus, you are going to love this one. It's not over the top animalistic. No, this is a true Chypre. The mix is beautiful. And what really sets it apart is the yang being so forward as it is. In a nutshell, it's a beautiful old money type of fragrance that is new, is modern, and no one else is going to be wearing. And two fragrances from the house of Yves Saint Laurent. Yes, how could I have forgotten about them? If you want to smell animalistic, manly, check out Coros. And if you want a sweet, smooth crowd pleaser that you can wear out with friends, La Nuit de l'Homme Eau de Parfum. So the first watch on this old money list is a timepiece I've had on my wish list for over 5 years. Seriously, I've probably tried this watch on at least 4 times, and every time I get so close, but I just can't pull the trigger. The reason being I've got already 60 watches in my collection I don't regularly wear. So yeah, to add another overpriced watch to my collection, my wife would kill me. But seriously, gents, this watch is not only absolutely beautiful, but its unique shape and history make it the perfect watch to kick off this list. You see, the origins of this watch go back to 1904. A Brazilian aviator named Alberto Santos Dumont. He was complaining to a friend of his how difficult it was to check the time whenever you were flying, whenever he had to pull out that pocket watch, and it wasn't even easy to read. Now, it turned out his complaint wasn't falling on deaf ears. No, his buddy happened to be a watchmaker named Louis Cartier, and within a year he had designed and built the first Cartier Santos. Now, what's interesting is this watch design's been around for about 120 years, but still, when people see this on a man's wrist, it grabs attention. First up, that square bezel. In a world of round bezels, it immediately stands out. Next up, despite its size, the watch actually wears really small because of how close it sits to the wrist. In fact, the flat design has always been one of the key features of the watch because it was made for function first. Now, there have been various iterations of the watch over the last 120 years, but in general, you're going to see this watch with Roman numerals and, in general, very legible. That last feature being incredibly important because it was first designed as a functional watch for aviators to be able to easily read the time. No, when I'm talking old money, I'm talking a classic design that's going to be timeless. A watch that you can spend good money on now and know that in a decade, in 2 decades, in 50 years, when you pass it on to somebody else, that watch is still going to be functioning, it's going to be wearable, it is still going to be stylish. In fact, the watch I'm wearing today, which is incredibly high quality, is coming from a relatively unknown micro brand. Which one? Well, stick around, I'll reveal later in the video. And to prove my point, the next watch on this list can be found for well under $100. It might as well be the unofficial watch of the United States military, and pretty much any guy that's into extreme sports and needs accurate timekeeping. Released in 1983, this watch was specifically designed to be able to deal with vibration and shock. If you haven't guessed it, gents, I'm talking about the Casio G-Shock. Now, over the last 40 years, Casio has released a wide variety of different types and different styles of G-Shocks. But all of them share the lineage of the original one, which was made to take a licking and keep on ticking. Actually, that's not accurate. It's a quartz watch, so it doesn't technically tick, but I think you get the point. Now, you may be wondering, why do I consider this old money? Well, first up, there's all different types of G-Shocks, so if you want to spend a little bit more money, they have become fashion statements. But for me, an old money watch is the original, and this is what Casio did right. They originated the idea of having that shock-resistant watch and having something made specifically for people that care about performance. For the guy that needed a little light, he needed a stopwatch, or for the kid that just wanted to look cool, I'm putting G-Shock on this list. Now, the next watch on this list is from a brand you expected to see on an old money list of watches. Of course, we're talking Rolex, but the watch I'm going to talk about is actually where it all started for Rolex back in 1926. You see, nowadays, whenever somebody wants to own a Rolex, the most popular is going to be by far the Submariner. But the Submariner isn't where it all started and isn't actually the most versatile of Rolex's watches. In fact, you could even argue the Submariner is a bit ostentatious and shouldn't even be on this list. However, for those in the know, the Rolex Oyster Perpetual is where it all started for the brand, and in many people's opinion, this is the perfect Rolex watch, especially if you're just getting started. And straight up, that's one of the things I really do like about this watch is it is their entry-level piece, yet when it comes from a watchmaking perspective, it is perfect in pretty much every regard. Now let's talk about the history. Water resistance wasn't really a thing before 1926, and then the Oyster Perpetual hit the market. Now, the word perpetual refers to the fact that it is self-winding, but it was the oyster part, the fact that it was enclosed and it was waterproof. Now, well, you could say water resistant to a certain note. In any case, they got on everyone's radar when they did a stunt. There was a woman that had swam from across the English Channel. When she went to do it a second time, because, no one believes she did it, and, she's a woman, she's like, okay. And Rolex saw the opportunity. They said, hey, how about you wear this as a necklace when you're doing this swim? She did it, and all of a sudden, boom, they're getting all this media attention. It was groundbreaking at the time that such a delicate instrument could actually stand up to all that wear and tear in the water. Now, all that's cool, and the fact it was the first water-resistant watch that was well-known would probably put it on somebody's list of history watches, but why do we care about it now? Because of the design. It is still simply one of the most elegant, clean, and sophisticated watches a man can own from the Rolex line. That being said, if you want something that's a little bit more blingy, something that's going to be a little bit more expensive, over the years, they've made variations with precious metals and with precious stones. And again, from a historical perspective, if you like the Submariner, if you like the Daytona, to know that actually all of this emerged out of the Oyster Perpetual is pretty cool that you've owned the grandfather of those watches. The next watch on this list is from Jaeger LeCoultre. Jaeger LeCoultre, Jaeger LeCoultre, Jaeger LeCoultre. Guys, I'm a kid from a West Texas trailer park. I can't pronounce half this crap. In any case, this particular watch has been around since 1931. When it came out, it was a revolutionary design in actually the functionality of what it could do, and nowadays we consider it to be an Art Deco masterpiece. And like a lot of the old money watches on this list, it actually has a pretty cool story. So apparently there were these British officers that were playing polo, and they wanted a watch that could be worn on the field, but could still somehow be protected because the glass and the way that they were constructed at that time period made it very easy for them to get smashed up. Well, apparently that's where Jaeger LeCoultre came in and said, hey, let's go ahead and make the Reverso. So, as the name implies, this watch is reversible. Basically, you can flip it over and the glass dial right there is going to be right on the wrist, and the back of the watch, made out of metal, is what's exposed. Nowadays, this design seems obvious, but at the time, it was really unique. And what was also really cool about it is you could go, with that base metal back, or you could have an engraving on there. You could actually have a picture. There were a lot of things that you could do with this. So yeah, this was like the Apple Watch of the time. And nowadays, this watch still works because it's understated. It's simple. It's clean. This is a luxury design. And by the way, this is a pure dress watch. The band here, the vast majority of the time, is going to be leather, either in black or a dark brown. You can get custom ones, but the overall size of the watch is relatively small. And again, that's something traditionally we also see in dress watches. And as you can imagine, with a 90-year history, this watch has seen tons of variations. That being said, the general classic look is going to be very close to to the original. The next watch on this list is one of the most historic dive watches out there. Now, the history of this watch starts with the British military out of World War II. The company was making these waterproof watches for them. They really liked them, and in 1948, it decided on its 100-year anniversary of being a company, it wanted to commemorate that and put out a dive watch for the masses. Now, some of you guys may be thinking Rolex again, right? No, the Submariner didn't come out for 5 more years. The company I'm talking about is Omega, and the particular watch, the Seamaster. Now, in 1995, the Seamaster got a huge resurgence because of the movie GoldenEye, but decades prior to that, the Seamaster had built a reputation among watch wearers as simply a functional dive watch with a robust case with luminous hands, clear, visible markers, and a unidirectional rotating bezel for tracking dive time. Now, there are tons of variation of the Seamaster, and I have to say it doesn't retain its value super well, but it is still the classic dive watch. And pretty much no matter what style you get, this is going to be a classic old money watch. The next watch on this list is going to be a chronograph, a classic aviation watch that's been around for over 60 years. 1952 to be exact, the company Breitling, they put out the watch, the Navitimer. Now, for anyone that flies, anyone that owns their own jet, anyone that just simply enjoys being up there in the clouds, they're going to know about the Navitimer. The reason is that this is more than just a watch. This was the watch made for aviators, made specifically as a tool with a built-in unique slide rule bezel. Basically, the Navitimer allows pilots to perform necessary flight calculations. So if you want to know your fuel consumption, your climb rate, you want to convert miles to nautical miles, all of this can be done with this tool that looks like a watch. And let's talk about size. Breitling in general makes large watches, so if you got a small wrist, and I'm one of those guys, I like Breitling, but I'm not going to own one of their watches because just the size is huge. And I know that they got smaller ones, but I keep looking at the Navitimer and I like it, but a little bit too big. For some of you bigger guys out there with huge wrists, check it out. Beautiful old money watch. Now, this next watch on the old money list is one of the more fun watches in my collection. I really need to wear it more often, and I love it because of the story, and I love it because I can wear it on my right wrist. Now, the watch model was released in 1969 by the company Tag Heuer. At its release, people loved it because of 2 distinctive features. First, and not most importantly, it was actually a square case, which was still relatively rare. And the other detail, which isn't minute, it was the world's first automatic chronograph. So with the design aspects, with the functional aspects, all being together in a unique package, this watch was primed to become an icon. And that happened in the 1971 film Le Mans. In that movie, the Tag Heuer Monaco was worn by Steve McQueen and will forever be associated with that movie and as a racing watch. Now, as it has been around for over 50 years, there have been many, many variations. I personally bought mine because it was the variation that Steve McQueen wore on his right hand because he is left-handed. But you see many that are made in the reverse style, made for people that want to wear on the traditional left wrist. The only thing I will say and warn you about with this watch is it wears larger than what it is. The square case is thick, the glass makes it even thicker, and all that combines to a watch that feels relatively heavy for its size. That being said, it's absolutely beautiful. Now that I'm making this video, I am probably going to wear this watch home and wear it for the rest of the weekend. The next watch on this list hit the scene in 1972 and changed the luxury market. It did that with a groundbreaking design using nothing more than stainless steel. Up to that point, all luxury watches were being made from luxury materials. It also had an octagonal bezel, exposed screws, and its integrated bracelet was very radical from anything else that was out in the luxury market. Basically, this watch created a new luxury sports market for the modern audience who wanted something different. The brand I'm talking about, gentlemen, is Audemars Piguet, and the watch is the Royal Oak. Now, over the years, AP has released tons of different designs, but the Royal Oak continues to be a symbol of the brand's innovation and is a favorite among watch connoisseurs, celebrities, and those in the know. Now, me personally, I don't own one. I've never been that attracted to them, but as you guys probably know a lot more about watches than I do, I would love to hear from you guys down in the comments. What do you guys think of AP? Should they have even been on this list? What do you think? And while you're down there, if you object with anything I had on this list or if I'm missing something, let me know in the comments below. I always love hearing from you guys. Now, at this point, you may be wondering, well, how do I assess my personal style? Well, gents, if you didn't know, here at Real Men Real Style, we've developed what we call the Style Score. We've got a really quick and easy quiz that you can take, and at the end of it, you'll be given a specific number and areas that we think you can improve upon. Seriously, it's just a fun little test that we put together, and I'll link to it down in the description of today's video. Oh, and the watch I'm wearing today is made by a relatively unknown micro brand that hails from St. Louis. So years ago, I was doing my research on micro brands, and these guys kept popping up as the go-to, just the most comfortable bracelet. They were using Swiss movements, and from what everyone said, these guys were punching way above their price point. Now, I wanted a watch that looked a little bit more like a field watch. At the same time, I wanted at least 100 meters of water resistance. This watch was actually 150 meters. And already owning a Rolex Explorer, I knew that I wanted something with a little bit thinner of a case, which the case on this watch is about 9.6 millimeters. Also, I wanted the size under 40 millimeters, and this case going across was 38.5 millimeters. That being said, when I saw the dial, just beautiful dial right there with the blue mixed in with that gorgeous brown leather strap, I knew I had to have this watch. Gentlemen, the watch I'm talking about is the Manta Triumph, which, by the way, I like this watch so much, I ended up buying one of their Ocean Kings as well, and the owners of the company are now friends of mine, so I'll give them a shout out because they are an awesome company that stand behind their products, and they're one of those emerging brands, again, that I think when you get one of their watches, you're going to be just amazed by the quality. First up on this list of old money hairstyles is the French crop. Now, the French crop, with its European origins, can be seen as a modern interpretation of old money sophistication. What you're going to love about it is it's low maintenance. It fits in with an understated elegance, especially if you've got a nice transition between the sides and the top. Now let's define what a French crop is. In general, we're going to see shorter length, typically about 1 to 2 inches on the top, and then with the sides and the back cut much shorter with a fade transitioning between the two. The key element with the cut is the straight cropped fringe, hence the name. And if you're going to be styling this hairstyle, make sure to go for a wax or a clay or a fiber. That's going to give it a bit more texture. Next up on this list, we've got the Bro Flow. And if you've got 3 to 6 inches of manageable hair, this may be a style you want to try to pull off. Now, as the name implies, this is a relaxed, cool, laid back hairstyle. And the way you're going to style it is basically just wear the hair down and you're going to push it to the back, maybe over to the side. Now, because of actors like Brad Pitt, Chris Hemsworth, Bradley Cooper, the Bro Flow has really become associated with a laid back, cool vibe of a Hollywood type guy with a bit of means. If I had to sum up this hairstyle in 2 words, it would be relaxed sophistication. Now, when it comes to styling product, if you've got manageable hair, you actually don't need too much, maybe some texturizing sea salt spray. But if your hair is a little bit unmanageable, you get a bit of frizz, make sure to use a styling cream. Now, in the case that you have hair that isn't so manageable, well, to make it more manageable, an easy tip that you may know is to wash your hair right before styling. And the second part of that tip, to use heat, to use a hairdryer to get your hair to do what you want it to do. Next up on our list, gents, let's talk about the brushed up hairstyle. If you're a young guy, you want that old money, youthful look, guys, check this style out. Now, to rock this style, you do need to have medium length hair on top, typically around 2 to 4 inches in length. If you want something that is relatively timeless, especially for a man under the age of 40, the brushed up hairstyle fits the bill. I also like that it's a bit more modern, so it's not like feeling like you're back 100 years, which to me screams young entrepreneur. Now, to keep this style all day, you're going to want a product that's going to have a bit of hold. So look to fibers, maybe look at a mousse, a gel. I also try to avoid products that have a bit of shine in them. So waxes and pomades, you can try it if you really like that look. Next up, we've got the side sweep, and the hair here on top is going to be even longer than the brushed up. We're talking about 3 to 5 inches on top, and you need that length because you're going to be folding the hair over. That being said, you want to make sure to talk to your barber, make sure you got it cut right on the sides and get a nice fade in there. But overall, for me, this one is an elegant, classy look, again, for the younger man, although I do think if you're in your 40s, 50s, you can definitely pull this off, even if you got like the whole salt and pepper thing going on top. Now, believe it or not, this hairstyle has actually been around a while. Go back, Cary Grant actually pulled this off, but you're going to see guys like Brad Pitt pull it off as well. And for that reason, because it does have history, that's why I'm putting it on this old money list. But depending on the product you use, you can really go for something that's got a bit of a shine to it. The key here is it really depends on your hair type. And I'm going to encourage you to experiment with different products out there, but maybe try a pomade. Waxes are fine, especially if you want a little bit more of a shine. But for some of you lucky guys, again, that have very manageable hair, you could get away with a styling cream, which doesn't have a whole lot of hold, but it's going to keep the frizz at bay. Now, unfortunately for you guys with curly hair, this is going to be a much harder hairstyle to pull off. So if you've got curly hair, I'm going to recommend the short waves hairstyle. Now, as the name implies, you can't go crazy on top, letting it grow to 4 to 5 inches. This hairstyle is going to work when you keep about 2 to 3 inches on top. I think a guy that rocked this really well we've seen recently is Timothée Chalamet. I mean, this guy I love all the movies he's been in, but he really does a great job with his style, with his image. And if you've got curly hair, definitely find some inspiration, find somebody out there that, has a similar hair type to you and look at the way that they're rocking, especially if they've got a full-time stylist that's making sure their hair is on point. All that being said, the short waves hairstyle actually has a bit of a pedigree, a bit of a history with it. If you go back to old school Hollywood, there are images of guys pulling this off over 100 years ago. And what I really love is you can keep the product is simple. This is letting your hair do its thing. So yeah, you want to throw in maybe a little bit of sea salt spray, maybe a little bit of texture cream, maybe a little bit of styling cream, but overall you don't have to overdo it with the product. The next old money hairstyle we're going to talk about, gents, is the slick back. Now the slick back is often associated with power, with control. This is, if you're a Wall Street broker, if you're a guy that lives, you got a place over in the Hamptons, this is the type of hairstyle I think a lot of people imagine that you would have. Now the slick back has this feel of a polished look. It looks like you put some effort and time into your hair. You've got an expensive stylist, and I think that's one of the allures, one of the things that people like about this hairstyle. It looks like you got money. That being said, you don't have to have old money to actually get this hairstyle. You just have to have about 3 to 5 inches on top, and you've got to make sure to style the hair straight back, use product to provide a polished and refined look. Now the sides, you've got options. You can cut the sides a bit shorter, or you can leave it longer and just slick everything back. In either case, it really depends on your face shape. If you've already got an angular face, you can go with a little bit more hair on the sides. If you have a rounder face, I would get rid of some of that hair on the sides to basically square up your face. Now the product here is going to be strong. You want something that's going to hold the hair in place and give a bit of a shine. So pomades, gels, looking at a wax, any of those products right there are going to give a bit of shine, and they're going to ensure a smooth, sleek appearance. Now, this next one is for you guys out there with longer hair, and I think a lot of people are going to be surprised to see this on the list, but when you see guys out there, old school money guys like Ralph Lauren, and maybe he's not that old school money, point being is people are rocking the style. Yes, that is the ponytail. Now, you've got to have medium to long length hair to be able to pull this off. You're going to slick your hair straight back, and you are going to use a tie to hold it in place. What I personally love about this hairstyle is how easy it is. You don't really need any product. If you get a bit of frizz, yes, use a styling cream or a mousse, but for most intents and purposes, this is if you just want your hair out of the way, you want a slicked back look without having to even put in product. The ponytail is perfect for guys with long hair. So counting down the final 3. So coming in at number 3, we've got the crew cut. Now the crew cut can feature hair that's a little bit longer in the front than on the top of the head, and it gradually gets shorter towards the back. Now the length on top is usually pretty simple. We're talking 1 to 2 inches, so this is going to be a shorter hairstyle. And in general, this hairstyle is very short on the sides. It's practical, it's fashionable, and what I love is it is relatively low maintenance. You don't have to use any product. You can, if your hair is going to be longer than, an inch and you want to be able to style it a certain way. There are variations of the crew cut, but what I like about this, it's simple, it's clean, it's elegant, it gets the job done. Coming in at number 2, we've got a longer version of the crew cut known as the Ivy League cut. Now the hair on top is longer. We're talking about 1.5 to 2.5 to 3 inches in length. It's going to be long enough that we can actually part it on top, that we can change things up, we can have a little bit more fun with the styling. In addition, the sides are going to be longer on an ivy cut, so we're not going to see anything that's showing skin. Usually on an ivy cut on the sides of the head, we are going to have enough hair that, yeah, it's fully covered. Now the drawback to the ivy cut is this one does require a bit more maintenance. You're going to need to see your barber probably every 2 weeks to be able to keep it at this length. It's one of those haircuts that is between medium length and short length, and if you let it get too long, it's kind of got that transition period that doesn't look great until it's a little bit longer. Now, as the name implies, this one is associated with the East Coast and the higher end schools, and it was just a popular hairstyle for a long time. So you see tons of men wearing this hairstyle. It's like the default hairstyle for so many younger guys. They simply ask for an Ivy League cut. That being said, I'm not putting this down. I mean, guys like JFK used to rock this hairstyle. Now, to get a great look, make sure to start with damp hair. Again, washing your hair, you can use a little bit of heat if you want to get a little bit more texture, a little bit more height in the hair. But, when you keep it traditional, just simply put in the product and comb. Again, the product you use really depends on the look that you're going for. If you want something with a bit less of a shine, then go for, like a matte mud, maybe go for a fiber. If you want something with a little bit more shine, look at a pomade. And so, without further ado, the hairstyle coming in number 1 on my list for old money hairstyles, gents, the classic side part. Also sometimes called the businessman's haircut. This hairstyle involves the hair being parted on one side and combed over, creating a neat and professional style. The hair on top typically ranges from 2 to 4 inches in length, while the sides are kept shorter, but not overly short. Again, you shouldn't be able to see skin. Now, of course, you can style this hairstyle in a wide variety of different ways, depending on heat, depending on product, depending on which side you actually decide to put the part. So have you ever met somebody that looked really polished, but as soon as you started speaking with them, you realized this person is not somebody I want to be around? Example, you see this beautiful woman at a party, you eventually make your way over there, start speaking with her, and within 1 minute of speaking with her, you realize she can't hold a conversation, she can't talk about nor is interested in anything you're passionate about, and on top of that, she doesn't have the best oral hygiene. Now, she may be a great person, but her mannerisms repel you and pretty much anyone else she comes in contact with. Gents, I share this with you because the simple fact is this. Our behaviors, our mannerisms, our understanding of etiquette can elevate our style, or if you mess it up, can sink your style. So let's start this off with an old school etiquette tip that will definitely set you apart from the crowd. This one old money habit that is so simple, but so few people do it in a world full of competition can easily move you to the front of the line. And the best part is this habit can help you both in your personal and business relationships. So what's the habit I'm talking about? Gentlemen, handwritten notes. Seriously. How many times have you done something for somebody and received no thanks? I know for me that seems like the majority of the time. And how many times have you done a lot for somebody and gotten maybe a verbal thanks or a text with, THX? On the flip side, how many times have you done something for someone that was maybe minor, maybe it was a little bit of work, and you received a care package? I remember one time I spent an hour on the phone with another business friend and I just helped walk her through a problem that I knew how to solve. I didn't think it was too difficult and didn't think anything of it. She asked for my address and she not only sent me a handwritten letter, but chocolate covered strawberries. She knew I had a family. It was delivered right to our door. And when I got home, it was already open. My kids were like, "Who sent you this? This is so awesome." Now, did she have to do that? No. But as you can tell, when I'm just thinking of my friend Modesita, it just gives me good feelings, and that's what you want to associate here. To paraphrase Maya Angelou, people will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So how can you make people who have assisted you feel amazing? Maybe sitting down and writing a letter to your old coach and telling him how much he means to you and how you're still using his lessons a decade later. When you make it a habit to thank people properly, you are going to have a reputation as somebody that not only pays attention to the details, but somebody that is warm, somebody that's friendly, somebody that other people want to be around. The next old money mannerism that can elevate your style: remembering people's names. Now, the first step in remembering people's names is to realize that most of us can't do it very well. And this is partly because most names are arbitrary. By that, I mean most names aren't associated with the characteristics of the person. Example, if I say the word coin, something like this probably pops up in your mind. Which, by the way, if you'd like to earn yourself an RMRS Challenge coin, go down into the comments section and add value to this video. Perhaps by sharing with us a story about how proper manners leveled up your image. So get down there in the comments, have some fun, and we'll choose at least half a dozen of you guys in the next week. So getting back to names being arbitrary. When I say the name Mike, what comes to mind? Who comes to mind? Maybe a good friend, but most likely quite a few. We know quite a few Mikes, right? And the name isn't tied to the characteristics of the person. There are short Mikes, there are tall Mikes, there are large Mikes, there are fast Mikes, there are smart Mikes. Now, because of that lack of association, it's difficult for our brains to latch onto what the name of this person is, especially when you're meeting a lot of people in a short amount of time. So knowing this, acknowledging this, and also acknowledging the fact people love it when people say their names. So acknowledging that for most people, names are difficult to remember, and as Dale Carnegie said, a person's name is, to that person, the sweetest, most important sound in any language. So knowing this, gents, you can easily set yourself apart from the crowd by having a technique to remember names. The easiest way is to write them down. Better yet, when you meet somebody, especially in a business setting, you have them enter their information right into your phone contacts. I do this all the time. After I've been speaking with somebody for a few minutes who I realize I want to stay in touch with, all of a sudden I'll say, "Hey, can I get your contact information?" And then I send them a quick text to make sure they have my information. Now, in a personal setting, that may be a bit odd, but when you're meeting somebody for the first time, there's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, I'm really bad at remembering names. Do you mind if I write it down?" Apparently, this was a tactic of former President Bill Clinton. And here's the thing is no one really took offense to this. It was actually, wow, he thinks I'm important enough, and this is before he even got big. People were like, wow, this person really wants to know my name, and they're not good at it. Yeah, I don't have an issue with it. I just did this the other day. We had a Chinese couple move into the area. Their daughter, good friends with my daughter, they ice skate together, but their names, very difficult for me to remember. So I said, "Hey, do you mind if I write it down? Uyan." I wrote it down exactly like it sounded, not how it would actually be spelled out. Point being, is I had it right there on my phone notes, and when I saw Uyan 3 weeks later, I was able to call him by his real name. Now, if you don't want to write it down, 3 other tactics that are really great are: 1, actually when you're speaking with the person, say their name multiple times. Now, don't make it weird, but whenever you say somebody's name, this is a different way of remembering. I don't know about any of you guys, but I played piano as a kid. I don't remember the notes. I don't even remember the name of some of the songs. But you know what? When I sit down, I can still play. Why? I've got muscle memory. I played that much. So when you say a person's name again and again, and you're looking at them, this is a form of creating memory and association. And speaking of association, that next tactic is to take their name and add a part to it that is a characteristic of them. So you meet a really big guy. His name is Andre. Andre the Giant. Don't say it maybe to his face. He's probably heard it before, but that's how I would remember that person's name. Now, speaking about remembering names, let's talk about the old money etiquette of making proper introductions. I see this all the time at parties that people just assume that other people know each other. Here's the thing. If you don't know for sure, there is nothing wrong with making an introduction. In addition to that last point, it helps you remember the name when it's somebody new. And yes, they may already know each other, but they may have forgotten what that person's name is. Yeah, I've seen them around town. I can't remember their name. I see so many people not doing this. If you are the host of the party, it's at your house, it's at your get together, it is usually your responsibility, something a lot of people don't even know. But also, I just think it's good manners to make sure that everyone at the party knows each other's names. On top of that, and this is great in business, is to talk a little bit about who that person is and what they do. And I find that this is, for me, easier to remember than often a person's name. But once they've told you a little bit about their story, all of a sudden you put together a quick little pitch, maybe 15, 20 seconds. And I find that people love it whenever you can make an introduction that's really tight, really succinct. And everyone, oh yeah, that's the guy that helps people find, if they're out looking for a car, he negotiates on their behalf to make sure they get the best deal. Oh yeah, that guy owns a custom clothier. He makes men in their 40s look amazing. And I have to admit, this is probably one of my superpowers because I love making introductions. It's the reason I run masterminds on Fridays, that whenever I go to a conference, I love just catching up with old friends before I go. I do all this research about who's going to be there, people that I already know, so I'm sending them text, I'm sending them messages, letting them know, hey, let's have a meetup before, a meetup after. And also you're given that outside perspective. You realize that, okay, this guy has a YouTube channel and he talks about big ideas, he talks about new and trending things, and this person is running a company that actually it fits. Like, I've got to get these two people. You see them on opposite sides of the party, and you're like, I've got to make that introduction. Everybody loves it when somebody is out there looking for their best interests, and it really creates, and it helps with the dynamics of the party. Now let's talk about something you don't want to do. You don't want to be talking about money. I get it. If it's a finance event, of course you're going to talk money. But if you are doing really well, here's the thing, is you don't want to be out there bragging. You don't want to be out there trying to show off. Yeah, that's kind of I get it. That maybe, and that's a whole other video, new money versus old money. Old money, and the idea behind this is that you don't have to brag. Like, it's already like, you know your stuff and you know who you are, and it's not about putting it in other people's face that, yeah, the business is doing. Now, if they ask, you can maybe get into something, or you can maybe steer the topic in a different direction, but you don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. Money, religion, politics, these are topics that oftentimes can be very polarizing for people. And if people have a very different view, or maybe they're not doing so well money-wise, it can put them in an embarrassing situation. And that's really what you want to avoid. Now, what if you're at a party? What if you're at an event? What if you're speaking to somebody that you realize doesn't really know what they're talking about? This person maybe hasn't traveled. They don't speak the language. In my case, I cannot seem to pronounce anything that is French. Hey, I grew up in a trailer park. I've only spoke one language, but maybe you speak five, and maybe French is one of them. And you notice this person keeps mispronouncing things. Do you correct them in front of everybody? I would say you want to be really careful with that. In fact, I would say it's an old money technique, just to simply, you want to educate, but you do not want to put people down. You don't want to belittle. You don't want to come off as patronizing. Now, how to do this? I always think it's best in private, or to approach it in a way. It's like, you know what? I was over in France about 2 years ago, and this is how I heard it pronounced. I'm curious, like, what do you guys think? Like, is there a proper way? And all of a sudden, you're genuinely curious. Maybe this person knows something. I like to assume that this person, yes, they may not have traveled to France. They may not be as well read, but you know what? This person probably has a lot more hands-on, working with cars, maybe welding, and I have so much to learn from this person. I think when you approach it that way, that we've just got knowledge bases in different realms, all of a sudden you realize you have a lot to learn from that person. Maybe they're very insightful when it comes to, raising their kids. Maybe, again, with inner techniques, maybe they're a monk and they just simply have more, everyone's got something they're bringing to the table. So look for that versus trying to push your superior, intellect on other people. When it comes to mannerisms with speaking, you want to speak clearly and you want to speak calmly. Clearly, meaning that you've thought through, that you are saying what you mean. You maybe speak a little bit slower or faster, depending on, when we get passionate, we get excited about things. We oftentimes speak quicker. Other times, whenever you want to be more deliberate, you've got an important point to make, you can slow things down and be more clear with your words. It's not you're speaking down to the person, it's just simply you want to give it a little bit more emphasis. Whenever you get into a heated debate, and this is where all of a sudden the conversation can go from being calm and collective to passionate to sometimes, people getting in each other's faces. Again, I talked about politics. When it comes to religion, when people have very strong beliefs that those beliefs define who they are as a person, they can take an affront to when somebody is bringing in maybe an opposing view that they feel threatens them. The key here is to understand it's just words. And again, to keep it calm. The other person may be starting to escalate things. Well, guess what? The way isn't to escalate on your side, it's to de-escalate. It's to slow it down. It's to look to change the topic. It's to maybe just actively listen. And that's the next thing I would say is a lot of times people just want to be heard, especially if they don't feel that other people are getting their point. Maybe repeat back to them. That's one of the best techniques with active listening. You're not agreeing with the person, but let me understand what you're saying here. And you are repeating back to them, maybe asking for clarification, asking more questions. And again, you may not agree at all with their stance in politics, but you're really coming to understand why do they think the way they think. And when you ask these clarifying questions that they have to answer, all of a sudden they may come up with I've never thought about that, or I'm not sure why actually he did that or why I believe that way. If you can imagine, it's like language judo. They are throwing the energy out. You are taking in the energy and redirecting it. Now, this next old money behavior takes time, but I think that a man should cultivate hobbies. And this may be picking up other languages. It may be learning a musical instrument. It may just be exploring a different realm, maybe horseback riding, getting into something that really opens up the mind. Now, a lot of you guys know you're working multiple jobs. How are you going to fit that stuff in? I think a hack to this is become really good at asking questions. Be curious. Talk about being an active listener, but also when you're listening to somebody, learn, what questions can I ask? How can I go 3 to 4 levels deep and really understanding why do you do this? What's driving this? Tell me more about this. Because whenever you can go deeper with those questions, I think it could help you even find maybe something you're really interested in, because we all need a distraction from work, and I know, again, some of you guys are working crazy hours, but I do find that if you can find beauty in music, and maybe it's just you don't learn to play the instrument, but you learn to really appreciate albums. You do have that commute to and from work that you can spend an hour going back and listening to classic rock albums of the 1970s and 80s, and all of a sudden you're understanding how things are put together. You could become a little bit of an aficionado. There are ways, I think, to be able to cultivate an understanding of different things, of different life, and all of a sudden you'll find that you can bring that into conversation in a deep way. And I think that right there, just again, getting your mind to go beyond the day-to-day drive, that we all have to do. And a tactic that I like to employ as a guy that works a lot. I got 7 kids. I got 5 companies. I listen to audiobooks. I combine that with my exercise when I'm out walking, when I'm out, down in the gym. I just love being able to go back, and biographies are huge. And again, it enables you to have a well-rounded understanding of different things. You can go to different places, all through simple books that you can, kind of double whenever you're out driving, whenever you're out working out, and all of a sudden you can be more well-read and you can have better conversations and ask better questions. So a few quick ones. Be punctual. Your time is important. Respect other people's time. There's no such thing as being on time. You're early or you're late. And try to be that person that's always 5 to 10 minutes early. Have something to read, something to listen to, and you will always be, amaze people that, wow, this guy is always on point. You develop your reputation that way. Next up, don't gossip. Don't say anything about somebody that you wouldn't say to their face. If you would say it to their face, then it's not gossip. It's just simply your belief. Maybe it's even the truth. You don't want to ever say it and it come back to somebody that you were talking about them and you didn't want them to hear that. And let's talk about being gracious. Now, it's easy to be gracious when you receive what you want. But what about when you receive that harsh criticism? You get that feedback that you weren't expecting, and it's tough for you to take. Well, here's the thing, is that person was either, maybe looking to bring you down, but most likely that person, especially if it's a friend, if it's a colleague, they were looking just to that's their view. And it may be right, it may be wrong, but you need to thank them for it and appreciate their courage in actually presenting that information. And maybe that's all you have to say. You don't have to agree with it. But what you do want to do is you want to show that you have received it, you're processing it, and thank them for throwing it out. All right, Jen, so what'd you think? What did I miss? Let me know in the comments down below and keep watching. Got another video for you. Boom, right here. Go check it out.